And now for something completely different.
Who disrupts my coronation?
Everyone has been destroyed because of this freak. I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame fest party!
What's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone here in the birdcage in the lovely town of Guelph, Ontario, Canada. I'm joined with
Alex in person.
Holy dog shit, we're together! Isn't that great?
What is this, 2018?
I know, right? In the long ago. Man, it's been a hell of a while since we've just kind of had a chance to just hang out and record the show proper. Because if we do hang out, it's like we're going to hang out and play games. We're actually just going to hang out and just watch movies and talk. Or watch movie trailers until like midnight.
Getting ideas for shows.
This is an actual work / kind of hangout day. So yeah, this is just fun just to actually kind of see each other, bounce off each other. It's like that natural morning radio vibe that you used to enjoy many years ago when I could see Alex literally every week. But obviously COVID changed that reality, and obviously with the economy being the way it is, it kind of sucks. But we're here. We are ready to entertain you out there.
We're here. We're queer. Wait. Well, maybe. No.
Maybe. So, hey, no. It's 2022.
We're here. We are here at least.
Yeah, we're here and we accept everybody. So yeah, it's a good time, as we most often do. Off the top of every show, we usually talk about what's been going on in the past week. And, well, this week for me, yesterday, I decided to go to the place where I get weighed for surgery at this dialysis clinic here in Guelph, and I'm below surgery weight.
Good.
Which means I could be off the show for up to 2 months later on this year, outside of doing my regular reviews. And that's exciting. I see my doctor in just a little under 2 weeks, and hopefully on that day I'll get an OR date or within fairly short order after that. So,
because I think the process is doctor approves you, then you'll wait a week or two till you have a consultation for your OR date with the anesthesiologist.
Yep.
And
no, I've already had that.
You've had the consult?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean,
realistically, I could know really soon.
Within probably 8 to 10 weeks, you'll probably have surgery.
Yeah. So, woo! So yeah, I'm totally ready to just knife goes in, guts come out. Just ready to get this over with. So that's exciting, and I'm really looking forward to that. And the only reason I did it yesterday is because, like, you know what? I'm feeling good. I'm outside already. I'm in my wheelchair. Let's go. And we went and found out. Great news. And then in other news, if you've been following a lot of my stuff online, which you can follow at birdman.dod pretty much across every social platform, my naming ceremony is tomorrow. And for those of you that don't know, I'm just going to very quickly explain it. In some Native American cultures, you find your name. Your name is what the higher being or the creator knows you by. It's the name you've always had before you were even born. And it's the name that kind of signifies who you are, your place within the tribe, kind of what your rights and responsibilities are. And I go through the Ojibwe version or the Anishinaabe version of this tomorrow. I meet with my local elder. He's a guy who works with the University of Waterloo. He's a former chief from one of the big reservations around here. And he's a guy that I've really come to trust when it comes to all things Indigenous. And he's remarkably well spoken. He's answered any of my questions, no matter how weird, silly, or stupid. And he's just been a really, really, really good guy. And there have been some other people that have really helped me along the way. There's my friend Ashley that I've known for a long time. She built me a kind of smudge kit. My friend Matt, who I've known from Niagara College, gifted me a fox pelt. And the fox pelt is maybe the spirit animal that has kind of guided me for like all this time. And basically, he's his dad had this like fox pelt, and he's like, "Hey Mike, I know you've been talking a lot about foxes, and the animal is important to me because in my culture you may occasionally get visited by a spirit guide, and in my case it could be the foxes. Every dream and vision I've had has always involved this, and the word for fox in my language is wagoosh. So it's fortuitous that I asked for a fox pelt a few months ago. A few of my friends were looking. I was just getting ready to buy one. I found one. It was expensive, but I had the money. And I posted this thing, and this kid messages me. He's like, "Hey, Mike." And he sends me a picture. And it's this fox pelt. And I'm thinking, oh my God, where's that? And he's like, "It's yours, and it's coming to you this week." And yesterday, because we're recording this on Saturday, because my naming ceremony is tomorrow, or was yesterday on Sunday. I didn't think it was going to get here. I wasn't sure, but sure enough, it arrived. So yeah, it's going to be a pretty heavy weekend for that. In other less serious news, me and Alex are working on our first big joint review of a game in probably a few months, I think.
Probably since we were doing some of the Ubisoft stuff.
Yeah, so we're working from 2K Games. They gave us 2 codes for Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which is the latest iteration of the Borderlands series. I would describe this, it's Skyrim if run by idiots. And it's beautifully stupid. Will Arnett is great. Wanda Sykes is, I didn't know that was her. The guy from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Andy Samberg, is the main character. And Christopher Sabat, who you know as Vegeta, is a voice in this. And one of the early missions has a bard who's a heavy metal lute player who's played by Mr. Satan from Dragon Ball Z. And he's fucking hysterical. Yeah, there's just so many weird things, and it's just such a fun game. I recently, I'm still working through my Mass Effect Renegade playthrough where I make every bad decision possible because I've never done a perfect Renegade run. Wow, Mark Meer is an asshole in this when you play as a complete jerk psychopath, and I love it. I am totally here for it. So yeah, that's been a fairly big thing that I've been doing. And then finally from me, and then I'll throw things to Alex. A friend of mine contacted me a couple days ago. There was a story in the news where about a little boy who was attacked by some other people. And long story short, the kid got severely burned by another kid very close to his own age. So the family, who my friend knows, he's actually a friend of the show, reached out to me, says, if you know any cosplayers, could you help get involved? So I contacted people like Toronto Batman. I've got a Mandalorian, a Boba Fett, a Spider-Man, a Master Chief, and maybe some other people are going to send this kid get well cards and video messages because he's in a burn unit somewhere in, I think, Connecticut, I want to say. So hopefully this all works out for him. I reached out on social media to a few of the Avengers to see if they would maybe come through for him. So little Dominic, I hope I've done what I can for you. And hopefully you will know happier days going forward. So that's what I've been up to this past week. What about you, Alex, as you enjoy Wiley on your chest?
Yes, I have a cat now, apparently trying to squish against my mic.
Co-host.
It's a co-host, yes. Nothing that serious. I visited family last weekend.
It was like your brother's birthday or something?
Yeah, it was my brother's birthday, but we also did it sort of like Easter because we didn't do anything on Easter. We figured, hey, cram it together. So it was just basically visiting family, catching up that way. I've got a bunch of movies I've been watching, games. I took advantage of the new, what is it, the Golden Week sale they
Yeah.
do, which is that's a Japanese thing, I think.
I think
It's
so,
a
yeah.
festival or something they do over
I
there.
think they mentioned it in like Persona 5, I want to say. Like they talk about Golden
Yeah,
Week.
I think it's like a week of festivals or something. So I picked up a few games that were marked down to like $11 a piece from like 40. So I got stuff I've been wanting, like Romancing Saga 3, Saga Frontier Remastered, Legend of Mana, and what was the other one? Saga, one of the other Saga games. They were all like $11 a piece, regularly $40 each.
Is that sale still going on?
Yes,
as of
it's
today?
going on till I think tomorrow, maybe a little longer. I'm not
I'll
sure.
take a look because I've still got some money in my PayPal.
For anybody wanting to know, you can get Persona 5 Royal Edition, Deluxe Edition for $28 Canadian.
Fucking do it.
That's everything, basically,
Do it.
other than some of the cosmetics.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's a big one. It's anything from Namco, basically Square Enix, Namco Bandai,
And Capcom.
And some Sega stuff.
Yeah.
Any of the big Japanese publishers have sales on. So I took advantage of that. I'll be playing through them on my own spare time. And other than that, it's not been too crazy. It was the weather being kind of what it was. I had a couple days where I'm like, I don't want to go out. It's raining a lot.
Yeah. Which kind of thankfully, like the weather's starting to turn around. I mean, actually, we're recording this on probably one of the nicest days of the year, so we are not staying inside all day. It's just been really nice around here. Actually, speaking of sales this week, this past week was Alien Day on 4/26. I picked up Aliens Colonial Marines for the PC because you can mod it, and there's a guy who wrote mods for it a couple years ago that fixes most of the AI bugs, because the first bug was caused by a typo, which caused the enemy AI to perform in unexpected ways, we'll say. But they like did damage buffs. They have the textures up to 4K. They've done all these really good workarounds to like overhaul certain things. You just can't bring the game into competitive multiplayer modes because it changes some of the values. But it looks fairly fun. I'm going to try it on my PC. And I want to say I bought something during Golden Week, but I can't remember what. Because I've been playing nothing but Tiny Tina, so I don't really remember. I did buy a bunch of games like during Christmas time I didn't get a chance to play. So I don't know if I ever told you that I finished Spider-Man Miles Morales a few weeks ago.
Yeah, you never told me that before.
Yeah, it was really good. My God, I can't wait for Spider-Man 2. That was a lot of fun. So it's been kind of nice just kind of taking my time to play games, because one of our old friends of the show, Mr. Tristan, was posting a meme the other day, and he was like, and it's a meme of people swimming in a pool, and you see all these kids underwater with one kid above water. The kid above water says new game. All the kids underwater says unfinished game. And I said to him, this is why whenever me and Alex take our month off in July, that's gameplay time. Finish as much as you can, as quickly as you can. Like when we took time off, what was it, last year or the year before last, Alex? I played Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
I think I was on PlayStation 4 at that time still.
But what were you supposed to play?
I don't Persona 4, I think. Yeah, so maybe that's what I'll do this year. Like,
maybe this year it'll be out on PS4 by then.
Yeah, which I would really like because there are big rumors happening right now that because I think it's been rated over in the East somewhere. I think usually in Taiwan.
Usually it's Taiwan or Korea that get the ratings first, and then it'll trickle out. I believe it was rated for PS4 and maybe Switch.
Yeah, I think.
But regardless, it would be probably PS4 would be where you'd want to play it.
Yeah, exactly. Just because I like my ability on my console. So yeah, games just play better.
I don't trust a game. I don't trust ports to the Switch anymore unless they're specifically made for it.
Yeah, like the ports of Doom work great for what they are. The Skyrim port, when I played it, worked great for what it is. But you're also talking about games that are 360 and PS2. a game like, Phoenix Rising by Ubisoft, that's cloud streaming. That's not really a port. So it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be cool. I'm glad we're going to get a chance to play some games. You and I are going to be doing that in just a few weeks. It's going to be exciting. E3 ish is happening.
Yeah, we know they've already announced the showtime.
Xbox.
Yeah, so we'll see where everybody else lands with that. But I mean, that's talk for a prototype at some point.
Exactly. So look forward to that. So anyway, folks, we got a lot of cool stuff. One of the things that I'm going to be reviewing today, speaking of video game franchises, I'm going to be taking a look at the Dark Horse Comics Halo Encyclopedia. If you've been following the Halo TV show on Paramount Plus right now, it does talk about some of the history of the UNSC, although the Silver timeline is different from core canon, but it will give you some idea and insight into characters like Dr. Catherine Halsey, the Spartan 2 program, where, certain Covenant things are, because I'm a big prop guy. I love seeing, they showed a 3D hologram thing of a Spartan laser. We've seen a Needler. We've seen a Covenant carbine. So if you want to know more about these Covenant weapons, well, this is the place to go for that. What do we have coming up from you this week, Alex?
No freaking idea.
because we're recording this show early.
We're recording a few days early, and I have a handful of things that I've watched and played. I have to pick and choose what I'm going to talk about.
Ooh, exciting stuff. So when I introduce Alex's thing, I'll be like, mystery blind box here now. So this first review will be something you can expect. So coming out of Slipspace near the Alpha Halo, this is my review of the Halo Encyclopedia, coming to us from Dark Horse Comics. We'll be back, guys, right after this. Only on ThisWeekInGeek.net. I've been Mike the Birdman, joined with Alex the producer. We'll be back right after this.
Between you and me, what's it like being a Spartan? Superpowered suit. Abilities like no other Marine. I mean, there's gotta be like a pressure to it, right? A responsibility, but tell me you don't have fun. Tell me you don't enjoy every second of smearing Covenant blood all over these planets.
Greetings, citizens of the UNSC. It is I, Spartan 026, otherwise known as Mike the Birdman, and I'm here to talk about something really cool we got sent to us from Dark Horse Comics. We got sent the Halo Encyclopedia. I'm taking a look at the digital version of this because this thing is literally a brick. It is so huge. So what you're getting here is a nearly 500-page encyclopedia. It is a tome of the Halo franchise. We're talking everything here conceivably has been covered. There's stuff on weapons, there's stuff on factions and forces, there's stuff from the novels, I think, in here. I haven't read too many of them outside of Matt Forbeck's Bad Blood, but they also talk about different people within certain factions. Like, for example, there's a whole section on the Banished, so if you want to learn more about Atriox and Escharum, you can also find out about all the Spartan killers and stuff like that. There's even a section at the end about Halo Infinite's big twist, surprise bad guy, and I really don't want to go into too much about it because I think they're leaving it open as to what's going to happen next. And a lot of this is tremendously interesting. One of the first sections that I read, because I read the section on ODSTs. Very cool stuff. But the other section that I really wanted to read and really kind of get a vibe for was the stuff on the Flood. And I didn't know how insidious this parasite really is. I found out on worlds that are considered blighted, where the entire ecosystem had its biomass consumed, had all its neurodiversity eaten, more or less like the Borg from Star Trek. It gets so bad that the Flood seeps into the soil and sucks the vitality out of it. I didn't know that, and then I started to wonder, well, how did the Flood spread if they don't have any spaceships of their own? They capture technology, and they have things called like plague ships, and these plague ships, since the Covenant, or not the Covenant, the Flood doesn't care, they'll just crash them, and they'll put like combat forms on there, infection forms, they'll have spores and all this other crazy stuff. I didn't know that. There's like organic drop pods they like talk about, but they also talk about how the Flood got started, and it's from something that may even predate the precursors, and they're like this weapon, and it used to be used on like pets, and then it mutated. It was basically this sleeping giant, and then obviously things got bad. The Forerunners invented the Halo array, and well, you know, we have the Master Chief to save us all from death. But there also was a section on the Banished, was really cool. They also detailed their weapons. There's a really cool section about one of the energy swords that's used by one of the Spartan killers. I think it's one of the Blade Masters, and his weapon is now called Ghost Piercer. And I think that's from the guy who has the artificial limb, which is really cool. So hey, as a disabled person, we can kick your ass. Patent pending. But yeah, it was really cool. They also had sections about how the Mjolnir armor works, how it's all modular, the different variants of helmets from the EOD, Pilot, Gungnir, Firefall, which is like an earlier version or a variant of the ODST helmet, stuff like that. It's incredibly interesting. And I gotta say, as a fan of Halo, having this while watching the show on Paramount Plus, it's a nice resource to have. Although some events do differ because the Halo TV show takes place in the Silver timeline, a lot of the ideas are fairly close to what happened in the core canon. Some of it may have been changed for dramatic reasons, but you know, if you want to learn how your M7 sidekick works, still the same kind of principle here. When the Flood get introduced, because I assure you they will, this is pretty cool to know how it works. When we start seeing more Covenant, like we've seen Brutes on the show, we've seen a shot of a Hunter, we've seen Elites, we've seen Kigyar, we've seen Grunts. It's really cool to know how all these people work and how, you know, all the different homeworlds and factions work within each other or even against each other. Like, for example, the Banished have humans in their rank, and I think their section is called the Order of Harmony. So Atriox is not above it using humans working with him. So holy crap. So yeah, this book, the Halo Encyclopedia, is absolutely worth your time. If you're a fan of the Halo franchise, if you're enjoying what 343 is doing, for better or for worse, depending on how you feel in the Halo subreddit, for example. But I think we can all universally agree this is a fantastic tome that complements the game universe wonderfully. And if you want to know a little bit more about the events that are happening and playing out on the television show, then this is pretty cool to have as well. I'm really glad that Dark Horse sent this to me, and I really hope I'll get a chance to talk more Halo as things go on here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. So until next time, soldiers, this has been Spartan026, out.
You see a pod marked Sullivan, just call me over. Reports show he didn't make the drop. I've had an eye on his sidearm.
Gunslinger.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
This Week in Geek News.
All right, once again, we have returned from the Forerunner Shield world. I am, of course, Spartan026, joined by my AI compatriot, Alex, the producer. All right, guys, it is time to talk about the weird news, the entertainment news all around that happened around the Big Blue Marble this past week. And we're going to start things off with a story near and dear to my heart. This story came from GhostbustersNews.com and Jason, but has been reported by multiple outlets coming out of CinemaCon. It's official, a new Ghostbusters film was just announced at CinemaCon. In some massive news, Sony Pictures has announced a brand new Ghostbusters film as part of tonight's presentation at CinemaCon. This was obviously a couple of days ago. As of this writing, the film's information is scarce, with no word on if the film will serve as a continuation to Ghostbusters Afterlife or how it'll fit within. Given Ghostbusters Afterlife was undoubtedly a success for Sony Pictures with a current worldwide gross of over $204 million on a budget of $75, another film announcement has been expected for some time. During the Ghostbusters Afterlife panel at last year's New York Comic Con, director Jason Reitman talked about the potential for more Ghostbusters films, saying, and I quote, "We wanted to make a movie that opens the universe to all kinds of stories. I want to see the Ghostbusters movies from my favorite directors, and we hope that this movie will set the table for that. In addition to the announced Ghostbusters film, 2 brand new video games are also in production. In fact, the first, Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, is a 4v1 asymmetrical multiplayer shooter, so think Dead by Daylight or Friday the 13th. And the other, Ghostbusters VR, will allow you and 3 of your friends to form your own Ghostbusting team in glorious virtual reality. Stay tuned. Story developing. I'm just really going to quickly check his website to see if there has been any updates to this story.
No, there hasn't. I don't think so.
Nothing significant that I can see.
I would say I would not want them to do a direct continuation. I think this is time to do Ghostbusters International, or where they're focusing on a few different teams around the world.
I might be. See, the thing is, the kids are so young, it would be weird to have Phoebe as a Ghostbuster because she's what, like 15?
Well, also, as much as I love the movie, it relied too heavily on member berries. Oh, remember this? You remember this? Here's a snack wrapper. Stop with all of that. Like, you could have the characters and pay them respects, but it felt like every 5 seconds they had to go, look at us, look what we remember.
I think if you involved Winston and Ray, if you had Ray being paranormal consultant and Winston be the finance man, I'd be okay with that.
Well, you know what I want?
Supporting characters.
I want them to do like
Ghostbusters Extreme.
Well, I want them to do an anthology. Think like Creepshow. It's 3 parts, 3 different teams from around the world of the franchises, telling 3 different stories, not necessarily connected. It's just, here's ghost stories from around the world.
Yeah, like Ghostbusters England would be like really interesting. Literally, or Ireland.
What happens? China's a little weird because they don't want supernatural stuff. But let's say they set it in Taiwan or something, or maybe not Taiwan. They might not pick Taiwan.
Ghostbusters Japan.
I want to see how they tackle ghost hauntings from different countries and different myths. So like, you go to China, or maybe if they don't want to do that because they're worried about what China's going to do, they do it in Chinatown in San Francisco, and it's like the hopping, ghosts, you know, like was it Jiangxi or something like they call them or whatever, where they have to throw, like, tackle different ghost mythologies from around the world and have different Ghostbuster local teams handling it. So that it's not just New York.
There was a comic book I read. I think it was the Ghostbusters TMNT crossover. And I think they fought a Japanese Oni, which is the Japanese word for demon. That could be really cool.
Like, how cool would it be if they set one of the teams in Japan and the team the local team accidentally sucks up a whole bunch of yokai, which and then that causes problems because they think they're ghost busting, but really they were sucking up the wrong kind of spirits.
Yeah, and disrupting the natural balance.
And it lets those spirits were keeping the balance of keeping the bad spirits out.
See, yeah, that could be really interesting.
The idea that literally that not every ghost is bad, because so far we've seen every single ghost is bad.
Yeah, I mean, the only good ghost we've seen is Slimer, who was morally gray.
In the cartoon, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
But everything else, they're all pretty much bad guys.
Unless Egon, yeah.
Egon is the only one. So what if they went to a culture where the spirits are there to protect against bad spirits? So you could have the moment where this team goes over there. Maybe they are a local team. Maybe it is a Japanese team. They should know these things, but they suck. They're like, why is everything being so bad in Japan? And then you have the cameo where they have to call their consultant, and their paranormal consultant would be Ray.
Yeah.
And Ray goes, what? You sucked up what? And what did it look like? It looked like a fox, or it looked like a
bear,
a squirrel, and all that stuff. And you're like, oh, and he goes, oh, no. And he's going through his book. He's like, you sucked up the guardian spirits.
Yeah, you need to do something.
So they literally have to release the yokai to protect against the bad spirits. And that could be one 40-minute segment.
Yeah.
And then you travel to South America and you deal with whatever their ones are. And then you deal with, like, you go to Canada and you could deal with, like, some ghost busting story that involves some ancient bad evil spirit from the indigenous peoples here, and you can throw in, let's say you put Wendigo, and you throw in something like the Calgary Ghostbusters.
There's a guy on Twitter, I'm just gonna say his username because I think he's a fairly well-known guy. If not, I like him. His name is the diabetic Ghostbuster. I think he does patches or something. And he pitched a story about Ghostbusters Afterlife. He's like, I want to see them go after cryptids. So Ghostbusters versus Bigfoot. I'm like, okay, I like where you're going. What if we expanded it to the Jersey Devil, the Mothman, I think it's called the skunk ape from Florida, like any of the weird creatures, like any like go like okay, it's gonna sound weird because it's tied to another franchise, Ghostbusters Urban Legend. That's your anthology series,
Yeah.
Urban Legends.
So you've got the Japanese one where they set it there. So you got the yokai. How about this? They set one at the high seas in Europe, and let's say
Pirate ghosts.
Yes, but what's happening is
Caribbean
people. Yes, what you do is you set it either in Europe or you set it in the Caribbean. People are they're like, things are happening on a cruise ship, and what they don't realize is they're passing by the Bermuda Triangle, and it's the ghosts of ancient pirates are attacking these cruise ships.
Oh, that would be really clever. Like you could have like Blackbeard, the girl pirate, Annie, what was it?
And you could do things like having random appearances of ghosts like Amelia Earhart or like you'd have people that disappeared over the Pacific and the Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's or even just if you didn't want to do the anthology, a Bermuda Triangle themed
movie
for Ghostbusters. But I like the idea of you have the international aspect, so you can get actors from different countries with different lore. I do like so one's a pirate one, one's a Japanese folklore one, and then one's a North American cryptid one.
Yeah, see, that could be really cool. I totally be up for that.
That's how you get your 35 or 40 minutes, 40, and you get your 2 hours and some odd out of it.
Yeah, so Sony, yo, give us a call, man. We got ideas. Ghost Corps, you know where I live. I know this. So yeah, that's fairly exciting. So moving on to our next story this week. This story comes courtesy of Gizmodo.com. Never thought I'd see this headline. So the Robotech movie nabs Hawkeye director may actually happen. The proto-culture must flow finally. The live-action Robotech movie, which has been in development since 2007, has switched multiple writers, directors, even studios over the years, took a step forward towards actually happening by hiring Hawkeye's Rhys Thomas to direct the film. Admittedly, this is a step. Robotech, an 80s cartoon staple and space opera about a giant spaceship that crash lands on Earth, the transforming robot jets that protect it, and the giant aliens who want it back, has taken a few times before. Little-known director Nick Matteau, I think, was once in talks for the position. Then Aquaman's James Wan was hired, and then the most recent candidate was Andy Muschietti. So you might suspect there's absolutely no reason to believe that the 4th or 15th year will be the charm. However, there is. See, last year, the two studios who essentially own half of Robotech came to an agreement after literal decades of lawsuits.
What was it? Golden Harvest finally came to...
Gold Harmony, I want to say?
Harmony Gold.
Harmony
Harmony
yeah.
Gold, they were the ones that... They were weird in that they're not a media company, they're a real estate company that invested at a time when that was new in the dubbing and subbing culture of the early 80s, and they're notorious for treating their properties
litigation
as if you would treat property like literally real estate property and not how you treat a media property.
Yeah, like there's some interesting tie-ins with like Star Wars and BattleTech. You can read.
They're apparently notorious for litigating back and forth, like suing the original production company for trying to make more when they think they own it when they don't.
Yeah,
like
it's
the
dumb.
horrible, weird, crazy shit that happens. It's that property, and I think there's 2 or 3 others they let lapse eventually, but they kept Robotech, which is why we hadn't seen a North American adaptation since like 98 or 99 when they made was it 3D animated ones they tried to do?
Yeah, there was Macross Plus and there
Shadow something or other.
Shadow Chronicles or something.
I think that was the last one they did.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, and Robotech and I have had a really interesting history, but I'll talk about that in just a moment. So, finishing the story here, with these finally cleared up, it's more likely than ever that Robotech, which some scholars have called the greatest love story of the 20th century, will finally get off the ground. However, other live action adaptations of 80s franchises that don't have the nostalgia levels of Transformers, Robotech isn't nearly as sure a box office hit, which is another reason the space opera might continue to languish. Still, if it finally does end up getting made, the director of Marvel's excellent Hawkeye series seems like it's a great person to finally bring it to the big screen. Okay, so me and Robotech have kind of a weird history. So back in the 90s, when I got my first apartment, I had a friend of mine named Eric, and he worked at Blockbuster, I want to say. And I remember he brought over a Robotech box set that I'd never seen before, and I think I've seen like once since. I think it was the first DVD set I ever saw, or one of the first. And we watched a good chunk of the first season of Robotech, and he told me about Southern Cross and Invasion and Robotech the Masters. And the only Robotech I'd ever seen is I'd seen the pilot episode as a kid growing up, and then I rented Macross 2, and the less I say about that, the better.
Yeah, like without going too convoluted in simple terms, they turned 3 shows into 2 seasons, I think, of Robotech. Isn't that how it worked?
Yeah, the first one is the original Macross, and then Southern Cross is a different show.
And the Robotech movie was cut up parts of Megazone 23 and something
or
else.
something else, yeah. And it had enough similarities. I think they brought back Rick Hunter. They still had the Zentradi, and it got weird and dark.
Very similar, more convoluted, but very similar situation to Voltron being 2 or 3 shows as well.
Yeah, because there's Voltron, the Lion, there's Vehicle Voltron.
Yeah, eventually referred to as Lion Force and then Vehicle Force.
Yeah, and I was like, okay. And I've never seen Vehicle Force. Not one episode.
Most people, I would say 90% of people haven't. Most people saw that first 65 episode run.
Yeah. So maybe that's a franchise for us to check out. You know, I wouldn't mind talking Robotech, because there was a long running RPG by Palladium Books that was supported for many years.
Like,
I'm only
like 2 decades
easily. Like I'm only of the newer version of the Robotech books. I think I'm only missing the Robotech Defense Force Marine book and maybe something else.
And then there was like disastrous Kickstarters and stuff with them.
Yeah, I actually have one.
You have, because
Robotech Tactics.
Without knowing too much about it, I remember reading about it. Isn't there a situation where
unfulfilled Kickstarter,
where Palladium could be sued for fraud?
Yes,
because
it got very
because
ugly.
There's misappropriation of the funds, and they didn't actually make what they were supposed to make.
Yeah, like you're supposed to get like wave 1 and wave 2 stuff.
Anybody that questions it somehow is not getting their product.
It got complicated. It's gotten ugly. Like if you want a really fun ride,
didn't they lose their license midway through production of the game? So technically, they're not even allowed to make it.
There was something strange. I can't remember the precise details, but I know if you read their archived Kickstarter, it is a graveyard of horror stories.
And I know that the producer and the owner of Palladium,
Kevin Simbita,
was completely toxic to the point where he's poisoned his own community so bad.
Which is really weird, because I interviewed Kevin about 10 years ago, and to me, he was really, really fantastic. But just because a person's nice to you doesn't mean they're a good business person.
Yeah, or how they can change over 10 years to the point where, didn't this basically bankrupt his entire company?
Well, they're still making books, but they're not like...
They haven't made anything new or acquired any new licenses since it started. Like, at least, like, I've heard they're on life support.
Like, the last thing I remember getting out of Palladium was a zombie game called Dead Rain. I think it was called, or Dead World or something. I mean, new Rifts books still come out to this very day. And I just sold off my Rifts collection in trade a little while ago, just because it's a system the system is not very fun. The world is interesting, but I don't like the
world. Isn't the problem they're still using like 1980s mechanics?
1990s to early 2000. There was like a Rifts fourth edition that came out.
But like, I hear nothing about anybody having any interest in any of their properties anymore.
I take a look sometimes at their Facebook page, and I see some people talking, but it sucks. As I said, I think Rifts is a really wonderful idea, and there was all these talk of Rifts properties a million years ago, and it just never happened. I mean, with the Robotech stuff, I would like to see another company pick up that license. The problem is the Robotech IP has been gone for so long, you're gonna have to renew interest in it.
Eh,
Like you're gonna need a new show on TV.
Like there's really only two companies that could do it now.
Sony and Netflix.
No,
and
I mean, talk about the games, would be Modifius or maybe Renegade now that they've got the Hasbro licenses.
I would say
it would depend. If
Renegade,
if Harmony Gold struck a deal with like Hasbro to make a new show, then I could see Renegade putting out a game.
I would say Renegade's a more likely option simply because their 4-stat system, strength, speed, smarts, and social, would work well. Plus, with the Zord system you have already built in, you could easily build your own kind of Veritex and Zentradi gun pods or whatever. So yeah, that'd be the system I would probably use, or Fate could license it really easy. But part of the big thing about Robotech is you want to have your mecha totally customizable. So that's why I would recommend the Renegade system, which hopefully, by the way, folks, I got talking with Renegade recently. We should be continuing to cover the Power Rangers material. Alex is going to be GMing in probably a month or so. And hopefully G.I. Joe we should also be getting. I know they just released characters for Duke, Scarlet, maybe Snake Eyes, and I think Beachhead, I want to say.
And unrelated, but sort of related, Sergeant Slaughter just signed a multi-year contract to be back as his character in G.I. Joe.
Yeah. The second that figure goes up for pre-order, done. Because that guy will sell out so fast.
And what that means is when they do character expansions for the books, he'll probably be in the books.
Which is pretty cool.
Where you'll have like, and it won't be like, hey, because this is a weird case with like, this wasn't a character created for there that they just happened to use his likeness for. It was a character entirely created on his persona. So that's why he hasn't been a part of it, for a while. But I guess his WWE contract maybe is up and he's signed a deal. So he's going to be, his likeness is going to be in the comics and in the toys. And I would assume that would translate to games and board games and stuff.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing Sergeant Slaughter back. He follows me on Twitter. From what I remember, he's an okay guy. So
for a wrestler in his 60s and 70s, he's probably as clean as you're going to get.
Yeah, so I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to look too deep right now.
So, Slaughter is ridiculous, but
he's not Iron Sheik.
I was going to say, I haven't. Have you heard? I don't think I've heard of any really problematic things from him, other than his gimmick is old.
Yeah, like I don't.
But he's come right around to be that nostalgic. He's an old man dressing up as Sergeant Slaughter, but it doesn't mean that you can't lend his voice if they do another movie or game property.
Yeah, because I remember him. I want to say he was in Camp WWE, and I think he was okay.
He was back as himself there. And I mean, and obviously all of us were introduced to him in the
G.I. Joe movie,
the movie, and then subsequent series where he popped up, and then he was like the face of the toy commercials for years.
Yep. Like, so I'm really hoping that we see more from Sergeant Slaughter. He's a great character. So anyway, we are getting sidetracked there. So yeah, I mean, bottom line, Robotech. I'm just going to put this out there to you, Alex. I would love to talk Robotech this year.
Okay.
Because that's a fun series.
I did a run of the first season back in the day. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Now, what I would love is for them to remaster it, because the Macross stuff on the Japanese side, it's had full Blu-ray remasters, but not the Robotech tapes.
Yeah, we had a release in the mid-2000s. I got it from Time Life. And I lost a disc, and I actually found it on eBay one day back in 2010 after losing it for like 7 years. So yeah, I don't know whether there's been a complete Blu-ray remaster of the original. I think there might have been, but I'm not sure.
No, it's the Japanese stuff has not the stuff that Harmony Gold cut up.
Okay.
So hopefully, eventually we'll see something like that, because I gotta be honest, 480i 80s animation from a DVD doesn't look great on a 60-inch TV.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be talking about that later on this summer, and you can look forward to that. Actually, I did look it up. There is a Robotech Macross Saga Blu-ray, was remastered. It is currently only $18. 18% off, so it's $60, but who makes it? That'll be a big thing to me. I want to know
whether it's
it.
just an up
convert. Funimation. So the quality should be good.
So it's not just an up convert. Okay.
So yeah, we will. Oh, and they do have the Master Saga, The New Generation, the Shadow Chronicles.
Oh, so they're not releasing it as seasons. It's released as the story arcs. So it's not a complete first season.
Yeah.
So they're doing the arcs. Okay. You know what? Whatever.
We'll have to take a look into
We'll
it.
track it down and see.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, it might be on Crunchyroll to watch, and then we don't have to buy it.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. Good thinking. Okay, so this story, can't say I'm surprised considering the news that's coming out of DC Warner Brothers Discovery in the last couple days. Batwoman got canceled. Legends of Tomorrow got canceled. Flash doesn't look like it's going to be on life support for too much longer. It's not a good time to be a DC fan.
Flash hasn't been good in 3 seasons.
And, with what's going on with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, I genuinely wonder what's going to happen with Aquaman 2, whether that'll just get shoveled to HBO Max.
She really did shit the bed.
Yeah. I saw a pretty funny meme about Johnny Depp dressed up as Captain Jack in that, and I don't want to go any further into it, but
yeah, my mom
is
is
pretty ugly.
Obsessed with this. She's like, I haven't been this interested in the news since OJ's trial. And I'm like, this is the news. Like, when I say obsessed, she's called me to relay what she saw in the day on the Johnny Depp trial. I'm like, this is what you do when you retire? This is what you're watching?
My parents watched OJ.
Yeah, she's like, yes. Like, 99% of what she talks about the last 2 weeks has been this.
For me, everybody has been talking about the Elon Musk thing, which you're probably wondering, folks, why we're not talking about that, because no details have truly been finalized yet. And until papers are signed, we're not going to talk about it, really.
Until it passes all regulatory bodies and until we start hearing about what other countries are going to do about it.
Yeah, so it's not really worth talking about until we have more info. So not going to knee jerk, but I do have another social platform just in case. But anyway, back to the story at hand. So this one comes courtesy of comicbook.com. Warner Brothers may reportedly be selling gaming studios. Xbox, EA, and Sony are currently interested. So Warner Brothers Discovery is reportedly planning to sell off some of its gaming studios and IPs to major players in the industry. This isn't the first time this rumor has come about. In the summer of 2020, there were rumblings that Warner Brothers was considering selling off some of its gaming divisions. At the time, it was rumored that Xbox was interested in making a deal with Warner Brothers. Of course, nothing came of it, but it's not particularly surprising considering Microsoft was willing to reach into deep pockets to acquire some of WB's properties. It sounds like this could potentially materialize as a reality now. According to Fanbyte's Imran Khan, Warner Brothers Discovery may be shopping the game studios and licensed IPs, i.e. Batman, Superman, Harry Potter, around the industry. Khan noted that major industry names such as Microsoft, Sony, EA, Take-Two, and more are all interested in acquiring these teams. It's unclear if Warner Brothers would keep any IP or teams for itself or would sell everything in bulk, but it's also equally unclear if it would be willing to divide up IP and studios to different buyers. Either way, Khan stated he doesn't have enough information to confidently write up an official report, so this should be taken with a grain of salt. When the Warner Bros. Discovery deal merger completed earlier this month, a report came out talking about potential plans for the future of the company. In that report, it was noted that Warner Bros. Discovery wanted to bolster its gaming division, suggesting it would invest more into games based upon properties like DC. No new AAA games have been announced since the merger was completed, so we have no concrete insight at the company at this moment. It's possible Warner Bros. Discovery saw the interest in other companies taking on its brands in 2020 and felt it could be a worthwhile move, but right now there is no telling.
I can tell you right now, they wouldn't sell the whole division. It would be piecemealed out, and I can tell you exactly who wants what.
I think Xbox would go after Batman. Sony would go after Harry Potter.
Talking about they're going to go after studios.
Okay.
They won't go after
who wants
Rocksteady.
Rocksteady.
Rocksteady and Warner Brothers Montreal, which does the other Arkham game.
Yeah.
Sony wants them.
Okay. Who wants NetherRealm?
Microsoft wants it so they can take over Killer Instinct.
No, I would say they want the Injustice games.
But they want them so that they have a studio that can handle their entire fight. They want studios...
Mortal Kombat developers.
They want studios to handle specific genres, which is why they picked up They picked up RPG companies. They picked up strategy companies. They have not picked up anybody that's a dedicated fighting company.
Yeah, I mean, who did Killer Instinct? Was it Cold Iron?
It was
Or Iron Galaxy?
Iron Galaxy, and that was not owned by them. That was just like they just did work for hire.
Yeah.
They want somebody to handle a fighting game division. They would want NetherRealm. EA would go after Monolith, which is the Middle Earth people.
Yeah.
And they would go after Avalanche, which is making the Hogwarts Legacy game. They would want studios that could be there to handle other Call of Duty games. Telltale or TT Games, that would be taken by EA as well.
I thought Telltale. Oh, right, they're the Lego people. I always get them confused.
Yeah, sorry, not Telltale. I'm thinking of Traveler's Tales.
Traveler's Tales, yeah.
TT, like the Lego people.
Yeah,
that would be EA. As much as the other studios would want them, EA would go after them. They want the portfolio of the children's games.
Yeah.
And then there's Warner Brothers Games New York, but I think they're just a support company. The two studios that Sony would want would be Rocksteady, and they would want Montreal.
I could see them making a bid for NetherRealm just because, in my experience, the fighting game community likes to play those fighters on a PlayStation console. It's easier to get sticks for them. The controller's generally better for it.
But Sony's strategy is single player high-end experiences. That's what they're going
That's
for.
true. That's
they
very
have
true.
a few studios now that are making their live service games online. And also, Sony only has one Canadian studio. And it's the new one. Was it Haven Media, the one that made by Jade Raymond?
Mm-hmm.
And they just acquired them to make MMO/live service games. They want people in Montreal. They want that's the real hub in North America now.
And I think there's significant tax credits in Quebec.
Yes. And that would be Warner Brothers Montreal, and that's the one making the Arkham. What is the new one? Arkham Knights.
Yeah, which comes out this year, although
it was pushed back.
No, Kill the Suicide Squad was pushed back, but Arkham Knights is a firm date for this year.
Yeah, and Rocksteady in England, I can see, because these are single player games. That's what Sony wants. Sony will want to see how these games perform.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we go right. I can see EA wants support studios, so they'll take the Hogwarts Legacy people because they were known prior to that to be like a support studio, and they would want the TT Games because they want their Skylanders type thing. They want the Lego stuff. I could see Microsoft making a play for them, but I could see EA going for them as well. But Microsoft would go hard for NetherRealm because not only do they get NetherRealm Studios,
they get Ed Boon.
They get Ed Boon, but I believe a lot of the NetherRealm stuff is also actually They might go after NetherRealm, but they might go after other studios that don't exist anymore. They would go after the licensed properties of Midway. They would want the arcade games.
Yeah, because I remember I actually watched a documentary, and I can't remember who did it on YouTube, where they showed off footage that was already completed for a Mortal Kombat 1 remaster, and it looked fucking gorgeous.
Because when Warner Brothers bought Midway, what came with it was NetherRealm was a Midway studio.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on how the legal things work. I'm wondering, if you get NetherRealm, does that mean you also get
Mortal Kombat?
Do you get just all the Midway arcade games?
I would love to see, and this is going to be a really weird and deep cut here, I want to see somebody do a new Primal Rage. For lack of a better description, dinosaur fighting game was really weird, really ahead of its time in terms of finding secret shit, but it was really cool.
And the reason I say Microsoft would want them is you get Midway, you get a bunch of free games basically they can throw on Game Pass.
Yeah.
Like full arcade emulation ports.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be hard either because a lot of those are. In fact, it's actually funny you mentioned that because about 3 or 4 months ago, only through Xbox Brazil, but it was still claimable on a US account if you knew how to do it, you could get Midway Arcade Classics for free. So, there might be something to this.
Like, because I'm thinking strategic long term. Microsoft wants as much as they can to fill out their Game Pass library.
I mean, I think it would be great if they had a bunch of 15 games under 15 minutes that are basically meant to be little things you can play, like your root beer tappers, your spy hunters, all that sort of stupid shit.
Did they not own San Francisco Rush and all those games?
Yeah,
Now,
Hydro Thunder just recently came out.
I
as a
believe
game.
Cruisin' is the only weird one. That's owned by Raw Thrills, which used to be Raw Thrills was made out of former developers for Midway. So there's that. As far as what Sony wants, the reason I said those two is they want the single player games. I could see them going, if we can't get Rocksteady, I could see them going for Montreal and TT Games because right now, was it Team Asobi or Soba, whatever the team that used to be Tokyo Studio, they shrunk it down and now it's only making Astro's Playroom games. Sony doesn't have a team dedicated to making only family games. But the Lego game apparently is selling like crazy right now. I almost feel like it's selling more now than it would have when it was supposed to be released 3 years ago.
You know what's weird? I like the Lego games. I don't love them, but I like them.
It's all about potential.
I'm very tempted to pick it up.
I'm gonna get it when it's a Warner Brothers game, meaning in the middle of the summer
it'll drop.
We're after the week of E3 or when E3 would normally be. We're going to be able to get it for $30 or $40, and I think we'll have a really good time. Apparently, I purposely haven't been watching any of it. It's supposed to be a dynamic shift in quality.
Yeah, like I have a friend of mine who plays it on stream, and he had a lot of fun. I actually sent him codes from a Kotaku article. That game has like 200 unlockable characters.
It's the ultimate. Like it feels like the last hurrah of that studio.
Yeah,
like they might make more, but they apparently did a big shift. The hard part was this is the first time in like 10 games they had to change their engine.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of feeling like this is almost Warner Brothers going, hey, look how good the studio is. Look at if this game sells, who's interested in TT?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean they would get the licensed properties that go with it, but you'd have the talent, you'd have the people that know what they're doing. And now that they've made a new game engine, they could probably do it. I could see Sony wanting it, but I also think that because this is across, like, I think this is an EA buy. And it's all going to depend because we're calling it EA, but like, it really depends on somebody high up there, what they think, right?
Yeah.
Like, back in the day, this would have been a studio that Activision would have wanted.
Yeah.
But now that Activision is Microsoft,
yeah,
who knows? But I could see EA's been floundering. EA needs their
EA is surviving on Respawn. Like they are counting on Apex. Their Star Wars license didn't do well with Battlefront, but did really well with Jedi Fallen Order.
And with their portfolio, they want to cover all their bases. And I could see TT fitting into their portfolio quite well.
Yeah.
And if not them, I could see
Avalanche?
I could see THQ Nordic making a play with Embracer Group.
Yeah.
Or you could have said back in the day maybe Ubi, but there's talk of Ubi being on the market.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So it's really only these companies. Or, as a final thought, what if Netflix buys them? They're making this big push because of their subscribers. Subscribers have been so down and they lost money. There's this talk of them making a big push that they might even be interested in buying Ubisoft.
Wow.
Well, if they don't want to go out, if they don't want to, break the bank for that, the Lego games are the kind of games that you could stream pretty well through a Netflix service.
Yeah, because it's not like they're graphically intensive and the controls are relative. As long as you had a controller that could work or work with all the major systems.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some kind of a device you could figure out. So, yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible. I mean, let's face it, we're not going to get these games on Stadia because that service is effectively on life support.
I get emails every week. Hey,
same here, yeah.
New things to Stadia. Would you like a review code to check it? No. Like, I don't mind getting the emails because I like to see what's still happening, but no, because why review it for a service that nobody's using anymore?
I know I've got a Stadia controller around here somewhere.
And here's the crazy thing. The controller's fantastic. I use it as a PC controller.
Huh.
As an actual controller, the build quality is second to none. It's on the same level of quality of a controller as my Elite.
Oh, wow.
So it's almost like if you're looking for a PC controller that works with Steam and works with any game that way, and you want to, like with like 30 or 40 hour battery life, if you can find one, you want to buy one of those, it's actually worth it just as a PC or emulator controller. So regardless of what you think of Stadia, Google did a good hardware job. So keep that in mind. If you see a used controller, you might even be worth picking one up.
Yeah, I know I've got it around here somewhere.
I have one of the fancy blue and orange Founders ones.
So do I. And I got it because they were offering it for free for like $10.
If you know, they gave it away for free if you bought another Google Home.
No, I got mine for free because I signed up for YouTube Premium.
Oh, you got that deal, because the other one was if you paid full price for a home, they gave you the controller for free.
Yeah. Like I signed up for I got a brand new Google Home because mine was dying. And no, I got YouTube Premium because you said it was a really good value.
I was so tired of seeing you with ads.
Yeah, same here. And I'm like, fuck it.
And you know what? Instead of using an ad blocker and then having to wait the pausing time between, I like the idea that when you watch something with Google, with YouTube Premium, they still get ad revenue. In fact, they get more ad revenue when you watch their videos through that as part of the share than they do from having ads on their videos.
Yeah, so I'm totally fine with that. $10 a month. Who gives a shit?
And you get more. You get more like drive space and stuff.
Yeah. In addition, one of the IPs, I'd like to know who's going to end up with this studio, because this title, when it comes out, it's going to cause controversy, and we're not really going to go into our personal feelings on it. What's going to happen with the Harry Potter IP now that because the only reason I bring that up is because Secrets of Dumbledore just came out. In its second week, that movie has dropped off almost 70%.
And the sad thing is, I feel bad for the developers, because Avalanche Studio, that's the one I was saying that I could
will
see
be a support studio.
I think Microsoft would buy them as a support studio.
There is a game franchise, and I didn't think about this until you mentioned the children's portfolio. Microsoft has this IP. Do you remember Viva Pinata?
Yes.
I would love to see that IP come back.
It won't, because it's Rare.
That sucks. That game was so much fun.
Rare is a garbage company now. They're just basically a holding company. Remember they showed off a game that they didn't even have a design for yet?
No, which one was that?
Everwild or something? It was
vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, they said that those graphics aren't going to be in the game because they don't even have a game concept yet. It's an idea. Here's our idea. They're like 5 years away from that. Like, the question is, what has Rare done since Rare Replay? And the answer is nothing.
They did do Killer Instinct because it got taken over by Ken Lobb after Double Instinct.
They're bleeding Microsoft money.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if Rare shuts down.
Actually, I'm kind of curious to see what Rare is working on right now. Give me 30 seconds.
It's Everwild, I think it's called. And people were astonished. This wasn't even like when Obsidian showed off the title for Outer Worlds 2. This was, we have a title. We don't even know what the game is yet. And people were like, why would you show something that you don't even, like, you know how they have downgrades for trailers? The graphics...
They did Battletoads was the last thing they did. They did...
They're bleeding money except for Sea of Thieves.
And they're growing. According to the Wikipedia article, so take this with a grain of salt, as of January 2020, Rare has more than 200 employees after growing at a consistent pace for 5 years.
I will say this.
What are they working on?
Sea of Thieves.
That's it?
Which, for those that play, I know people are loving the seasons and the seasonal content. They had the Jack Sparrow stuff, which who knows how that's going. But from everybody I know that plays it, like we know friends that play it, they love it. And that's great. But that's it.
Yeah.
For a company that big. And then you realize all of the really talented people
left
are in their 50s and 60s and are either retired or started Platonic, which is the people that did Ukulele. So it's not, this is like when people wanted to get Reboot back, remember?
Mm-hmm.
But Rainmaker isn't Mainframe. Mainframe isn't Mainframe because 90% of the staff at Mainframe are in their 60s and are retired. So they aged themselves out of making games. Like, here's a question: why isn't Rare the studio making the perfect Dark game? Because they are not talented enough, and even the studio that's making it isn't talented enough to make it. They're having problems.
But because there's like massive turnover recently.
Microsoft does not have a lot of studios that are talented enough to be pulling off these AAA games. They bought all these companies and then are realizing that they're 4 years behind on all their projects. They bought studios that people say, oh, just wait the long term. you should not have to wait 7 years from your purchase to get any return on investment.
I mean, like, I'm as much as I love Halo and I love 343, I do have some concerns about Halo Infinite, and let's just say season 2 better come out of the gate strong.
Microsoft currently owns one studio that is a consistent winner and comes in under budget and on time, and it's Obsidian. That's it.
And they were, what was the last big game they did? Outer Worlds,
yeah.
Outer
Worlds. They're also the Stick of Truth people. They proved that when they were almost falling apart as a company, when they couldn't get financing, they kickstarted Pillars of Eternity and became the highest grossing Kickstarted game ever. And I'm not talking highest grossing Kickstarter like they made the most Kickstarter money. Once they went to retail, their games are the most successful games ever started as Kickstarters.
And I know Microsoft published Psychonauts too, but they didn't develop it.
Yeah, and
that went well.
And yes, and Double Fine is a small studio. That's why I don't count them, because Schaefer is able to make
good games, but they're not
make good,
AAA.
fantastic games, and they're not a huge investment. I'm talking like Outer Worlds is going to be a couple $100 million investment.
Yeah, whereas...
and they're making 2 games, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
They're making that, and they're making Avowed, which is basically Skyrim, but probably going to be less buggy. And you look at how bad the production so far has been, and they're so far behind on the what's that game? What was the game that they had that was the Peter Molyneux game series?
Fable?
Yes. They're so far behind on that.
And we've heard nothing.
When I say like the best studio, they only have one studio that comes in on time. I'm talking about like single player big games, because
maybe the Microsoft Flight Sim people.
Because Turn 10, I think it's a Turn 10.
Forza, yeah.
And the main Forza team is still,
they're pretty good.
But you have to wait about 5 or 6 years between each one. The team that makes Forza Horizon is the team, is it Children Can Play or something? They're also making the Fable game, and they've admitted they're having trouble with it because they've never made a game that wasn't racing.
See, I like the Forza Horizon games more than I like the Forza games, because the Horizon's more arcadey.
Yeah. So like you can count on them, but that's not the same. A good racing game is not the same experience as every single game you have. Like when you have a single player game that has a story, it's hard to make those games different every time. And that's why I say, like Obsidian, you can count on to make a good, solid new IP every time.
Mm-hmm.
Who else do they have? Every other studio is like years behind.
Mm-hmm.
Years, and like they're not going to see return on their investment until like 2026 in a lot of these studios.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be an important year for Microsoft on several fronts, because 343 hasn't delivered what it promised. Season 2 for Halo Infinite is going to be 6 months long.
I'm very worried that they're not calling them campaign expansions. They're saying
narrative experiences.
Yes.
They're going to be closer to Spartan Ops from
which
Halo
is telling
4.
me we're only going to get, every 6 months, we're going to get like 1 hour of story.
I hope not. I hope it's at least 3 hours. I'm hoping.
If this doesn't deliver, this next story and the one after that, I'm calling it. Halo is dead 2 years into its run, not 10.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard.
They're going to have to hire a whole team just to handle, like, they're not going to have co-op until over a year after coming out.
Yeah, August is the proposed date.
And it was already pushed more than a year.
Forge, I think, comes in September, I think. Maybe. It's in beta flight.
And this
right
game
now.
engine, it's not going to last 10 years. It's hanging on by a thread, because you've heard people that left the company saying, oh, yeah, it's built upon the skeleton of their
Halo
engine
3.
from 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. They're going to have to hire a new studio to make a new Halo and release it 5 years into this 10-year lifespan. Otherwise, it's not going to last 10 years. It just isn't. They're barely keeping the players lasting 4 months to 5 months.
It's funny you mentioned that. So last night I played a match on Xbox Series X, and I'm an okay player. I'd say I might even venture to getting good. I went 23-3. Now, either I am playing incredibly well, okay, or I'm playing against complete nobodies. Okay, sure. Maybe that's skill-based matchmaking.
Option 3, the people playing don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah, because I went into Free for All Slayer. Free for All Slayer, I've won that match once, and that's basically everybody versus everybody. There's no teams. I couldn't find a match at 2:00 in the morning on a Friday night, which admittedly sounds weird.
Yeah, but the cloud servers connect you with everybody worldwide.
Exactly. The fact I couldn't find a free for all game,
and you're playing against PC people, and you couldn't find anybody.
That was fucking weird.
Like, we're not talking Babylon's Fall 8 players online, but Microsoft, I guarantee you, Microsoft was expecting 100,000 concurrent players worldwide at all times.
Yeah,
and they're probably down. They're not going to report it. They're probably down.
The Steam charts don't favor this game.
They're probably at about 20% of the player base they were expecting.
Yeah, because there was 100,000 people playing in December at least. I guarantee you that number.
They're at maybe 20, 25,000.
Maybe.
Which it still sounds like a lot. You think about it, but no, it's not for a Halo game.
Across the world.
I know I heard on a gaming site that it was reported that there are more people playing Master Chief Collection online than this.
That is confirmed. And there was something Activision did this week. They were showing off stuff for Overwatch 2. That game had a huge concurrent player amount this week. Like, I'm talking over 100,000 if I remember the headline.
Which is bad. They're shifting from the new game to essentially an older game.
Yeah. So, I mean, Master Chief Collection has almost always been good. It's had some connection problems, but it works fine now.
And yet I'll say this. As a single player campaign, like if you just want to sign up for 1 month of Game Pass Ultimate
and
for $15 and play the campaign, it's basically a rental. It is a good 10 to 12 hour, maybe even more if you want to collect everything.
Yep.
You're going to get up to 15 hours of really solid single player game, really polished too.
Yeah,
very well done. Just missing certain elements, like don't plan on playing a co-op. You can't replay levels if you miss Skulls, which is coming later this year. But it is, in my mind, outside of Halo 2, the best story.
Yeah,
like single player story, and it's well polished, very well put together. I had a ton of fun. It's well worth your $15 or $17 for that 1 month,
and it's a good free to play multiplayer.
There's nothing here to pull you to make you want to buy the battle passes.
Yeah, I mean, the cosmetics, they finally showed that off in the latest Halo live stream, which, by the way, this weekend right now when we're recording, they're playing HCS, so the Halo Championship Series in Kansas City, and they had a Halo live stream where they showed off all the cosmetics for Season 2, the 2 new Spartan cores. Okay, they're cool. I'm not a big fan of the one armor because it looks like some of the armor literally is held on by electrical tape, because the story is these Spartans have been in the field for months at a time, so they've had to rebuild their armor. The 2 legendary pieces of armor that you get once you complete the battle pass at levels 99 and 100 are 2 elite skulls that are on your shoulder pads, so you've literally decapitated an elite and boop, and there's
which is cool, but every other, from what I was playing, I bought the battle pass.
How far did you get? It resets on Tuesday.
I think like level 20.
Okay.
Like there was nothing to keep me, because every other level was, here's a boost.
Yes, they did fix that. Fix that. You do still get them occasionally, but you also get earnable credits now.
And the modes weren't working when I was playing. I wasn't interested. Like, I'm not a big multiplayer guy. You have to do a lot to keep me interested. And nah. And here's the thing. I love the game. I really like the single player. I want more of that. I don't want to wait 10. I don't want to have 10 more hours of the campaign over the course of 10 years. No, thank you. I want a 10 to 15 hour Halo game every 3 years.
What I wanted from this, I wanted more brand synergy. And I know that I just threw a bunch of corporate buzzwords at you.
You want the TV show to tie into the game.
Yeah, and it's weird.
And they won't do that. And they won't do that because I don't know why you like it. They don't even like the TV show.
Well, from what I heard, because I watch all the Halo live streams, and I have talked with some people, there are tie-ins planned for Silver Team. I don't know what they are yet, but I imagine you'll get the armor cores for Kai, Riz, Vanek, and whatever Master Chief's armor set is.
Just watch them. Just watch them give you an armor set where it takes the helmet off. and see how pissed people are going to get.
That would be annoying. Although, if you told me one of the armor cores you can play as a fully Marine, actually, I'll bring up this really quickly. I brought up this idea in the Halo subreddit a couple weeks ago, and they're asking what would you want from armor cores, and we were suggesting, okay, I'm going to propose a new mode for you, and you can play as a Marine. As a Marine, you don't get shields and you don't get armor abilities. But in Halo 3, which I don't know if you played any of the multiplayer,
None.
You could get equipment. Equipment was bubble shields, things that could make you jump, things that would scramble radar. They were pieces of deployable equipment, much like Call of Duty. So as a Marine, you're a little bit squishier, but maybe you have more defensive and offensive options.
I doubt it. They're struggling to get basic modes in here.
Yeah, like they're just giving us King of the Hill. There was a mode that was in there for like a week or two, then it was gone. They don't have the tactical manglers, tactical sidekicks, but you do get tactical slayer, which is fun because it's mostly headshot mania.
They don't have co-op yet, dude.
Yeah.
They're not, until they get that done. What you're talking about is like a year and a half away.
Well, no, the King of the Hill comes next week.
No, like if you want to add like Marines,
yeah, like
that's like a year or two in.
Yeah, like
farther from where we are.
And there is active talk in the community that they're recruiting for a Halo battle royale, and they're kind of experimenting with a mode called Last Spartan Standing, which is basically just when you play certain modes, there's a danger zone that comes in, much like Fortnite.
Danger zone.
So I don't know. Like I want more out of this team. And I guess to kind of wrap this up, we've been talking about this for a while. I want the assets from WB to go to the right people. I want the studios to really flourish. I want a good fighting game developer in Microsoft.
I want Sony to get Rocksteady and Warner Brothers Montreal because they will let them make their single player games.
Yeah, like give me something cool. And, you know, if the reorganization of DC goes anywhere, maybe we'll get some really awesome games. Like, are we going to get the next Arkham series? Truthfully, probably not.
It's all going to depend on what Papa Discovery wants to do with them, and they probably don't want to get rid of their gaming division entirely, but and they want to keep DC. But I could see them paring themselves down and only keeping
core properties
and keeping one or two studios. I could see them getting rid of them, maybe keeping Warner Brothers Montreal. I could see them keeping two studios, but I could see them not developing games anymore and just licensing out their properties to other companies, and then just having the
team do the assets, maybe
do their assets or be oversight. Do what Disney Interactive is doing, where they started up Disney Interactive again, just to be an oversight committee to make sure that all the properties that they license out aren't being fucked over.
Yeah, like I know there's a property in development right now. It was covered by IGN this past week. It's a Disney themed Animal Crossing. You know what? Cool. I'm in. Yeah. Sure.
And literally, it's like LucasArts games and all, and Disney Interactive. They're just there as an oversight committee to handle the series and property Bible so that nobody goes too far.
Yeah, so hopefully it'll be good. We'll see what happens with these studios. Obviously, we will follow up more with the story. I imagine might be some news breaking by E3. Who knows? So anyway, folks, that's gonna do it for the edition of the Nerd News this week. So we're gonna take a trip down to your local store of choice, your big box retailer, and we're going to buy a blind box. What is Alex going to cover for us this week? Even he doesn't know.
Even I don't know. Future Alex knows, and it'll be here.
So yes, so stay tuned for this time paradox of a review with whatever this is.
It is time for a roundup of sorts. This is all films brought to us by Paramount Home Entertainment. These have been ones we couldn't fit into the other shows that came in sort of sporadically, but I was like, you know what, thematically, I couldn't find a spot to fit them with other pairings, so let's put them all together. One is we received a copy of The Stand on Blu-ray. Now this, I know we're a bit divided. Birdman really didn't care. Well, he appreciated the new version, this new miniseries, but wasn't as enthralled as I was because he really liked the original miniseries from the 90s. I, on the other hand, hated the 1990s Stephen King adaptations. I tried watching the original. I really didn't like it. So he was like, really? I can't believe that. I can't believe you didn't like it. I'm like, dude, it's not very good. Everything looks like the Langoliers to me when I watch a lot of the early 90s Stephen King over extravagant TV movies. This was, what if we took those and actually had a budget to them and were able to use modern special effects? So I really enjoyed this. I did feel that near the end, as with most Stephen King adaptations, they tend to lose themselves a little bit at the end, but this redeemed itself and told a decent contained story that I was happy with. Again, if you're somebody who is a super fan of the original miniseries, go into this with a grain of salt, because it is going to be different. It's going to be adapted different. It's not going to be acted the same way. I thought it was really well done. As far as, you know, the length, it doesn't overstay its welcome. I think it's the right length of episodes. Special effects are great. Audio is great mix. Special features, there's some stuff here, but it's fairly light. It's nothing super big to write home about. Now, if you're somebody who is a big Stephen King collector, it's one of the better TV adaptations. So I would say go for it. But again, as you can tell with Birdman and I, we had very differing views on it. I appreciated it more. Now, the other releases we have here are Orange County on Blu-ray, which I don't believe ever had a Blu-ray release, which is funny because it's a movie released in the HD era. Maybe it was one of those ones that had like an HD DVD but never got a Blu-ray, and then finally now we're getting a Blu-ray, and it has special features, commentary from the director, as well as some deleted scenes and some interstitial clips and scenes put in there. It's a solid comedy from, you know, the mid 2000s, or I guess early 2000s, early to mid. And I remember seeing this movie in theaters and really liking it. It was right at the beginning of Jack Black's breakout career. Prior to this, he had been like a character actor, bit parts here and there, and this was one of his bigger roles, and one of the only times that we see Colin Hanks look like a young person. He's looked 40 ever since. Well worth it. One of the funnier comedies of that era. I'm glad to see it's getting a release, and it's not just a completely bare bones release. It does have some features added to it as well. We also received Let It Ride, which is a Richard Dreyfuss vehicle, which I had never, ever heard of even. And it's a comedy, obviously, from that weird era in the late 80s where you had a lot of these comedies with people that were normally known for being like dramatic actors. And I think a lot of the stuff got lost in the shuffle. Interestingly enough, I don't know, like, it's one of those films like I think I like it. I'm not sure that I like it. But it's like horse track races, disaster. There's a bunch going on here. It's worth watching. I don't want to spoil it for you. But again, fully remastered, clean picture, looks great. Audio wise, full 5.1 surround track. A lot of these movies were only done in stereo, so it's nice to see it's had a proper surround track applied to it. Easy to hear the dialogue. And there's a behind the scenes featurette with it, which is worth watching. And I'm glad they included it because a lot of these don't have anything like that included. But that's the only special feature involved. And the final one I want to talk about here is CSI Vegas Season 1, or I guess CSI Season whatever, but they're labeling it as CSI Vegas Season 1. Vegas being the reboot, continuation of the original CSI. Now, what's different in this series is we've got Grissom returning, we've got a few other people returning to this, but it's not good. There are going to be some one-off plots that they're going with one-off episodes. It's done the thing that a lot of shows are doing now, which is making a completely serialized show. So there is one basic plot that goes through every episode with some B and C plots that are random for each singular episode. The plot here being that one of the previous team members from the original show is being framed, or appears to being framed for a murder, and they're trying to uncover over the course of the season his innocence, while at the same time doing their day-to-day lives, doing the day-to-day stuff with a brand new CSI crew, showing off how the technology has changed since the show was originally canceled. I liked it. It's sort of a hit or miss thing with people. I'm enjoying it, and it does lead into getting a second season where they're going to, it looks like that's the plot they're going to follow, is a single serial case per season with one-off individual B plots and C plots per episode. As far as anything else that is included here, there are some special features. Everything old is new again. A brand new look, seeing is believing, and some deleted scenes. The first three are features that honestly don't add a whole ton, but it is a little nice to see some of the actors talking about what it's like coming back to the show. Deleted scenes, there's a couple in here that might have added a little flavor to it, but they're not super important. But it is interesting to see that they did film stuff that got cut, and that sometimes happens more so nowadays with shows that go to broadcast TV, because if they're on cable or streaming, they can make them as long as they want. They can all have random lengths, but when you're looking at broadcast TV, it has to remain to a certain length. So it's 5.1 audio. This is a DVD, so it's not, super high definition. I will say this: interestingly, it looks about as good as when I was watching it over broadcast TV. I watched the season as it was airing initially at my mom's and grandmother's when I would visit, because they have just the antenna over the air, and through that 1080i signal they get, you divide it in half. It's basically 540p. This is 480p with the DVD, which is actually with a higher data rate. So it actually comes out to roughly the same as when you see it in a broadcast format. It would have been nice to see this on a Blu-ray, but as it stands, it actually looks as good, if not maybe slightly better than the original broadcast. So we'll take it because that's obviously cheaper than going with a Blu-ray. And that's going to do it for the roundup of the few Paramount releases that didn't fit into the rest of our reviews and shows. So we will be back with more probably like this if we have random one-offs that don't fit. And we'll do these roundups probably once a month or so in our regular episodes.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Well, folks, we are back, and we have cracked the Kinder Egg. What it was, even I still don't know, even though I'm editing the show. So welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net's Weird News, where we bring you the strangest and most unusual headlines coming around from the internet this past week, gathered from various news sources, informants, and snitches, and occasionally beings from other dimensions. It is time to bring to you the headlines this past week. So our first story comes courtesy of boingboing.net. Homeowners find well-preserved order of McDonald's fries from 1959 behind a wall. When Rob and Grace Jones of Crystal Lake, Illinois removed a small portion of a bathroom wall to replace a built-in toilet paper holder, they were surprised to find an old towel wrapped around something. After nervously pulling the bundle out of the wall, they discovered it held a couple of old McDonald's bags.
Were they worried it was a body?
A body or something
Or
else.
a gun, maybe?
So when they pulled out the old McDonald's bags containing empty hamburger wrappers and a fairly well-preserved order of french fries from NBC News, we were expecting the worst. We were both like, oh my God, we're going to be unveiling a cold case here, Grace Jones, 31, said as she laughed Wednesday. I was shielding my kids in case there was any dried blood. Their ranch-style house was built in 1959, and the Crystal Lake Historical Society has records of an early McDonald's having opened half a mile away from the home the same year, the Chamber of Commerce said. The wrappers found by the Jones family had in the 1950s McDonald's mascot Speeder, who predated Ronald McDonald and emphasized the chain's, at the time, revolutionary fast service. They apparently didn't taste the fries, but rather put them in Tupperware for display purposes. Now, I know there is a museum somewhere, and I want to say Europe, maybe somewhere in the States, it wouldn't surprise me, that actually looks after preserved fast food.
Was it the one where they found the McDonald's hamburger bun that hadn't had mold on it, even though it was 25 years old?
Yeah, and I seem to recall you and I covered a story.
Which is disturbing, because I know that
preservatives
it can go stale, but the fact that mold won't grow on it,
yeah, because there's no moisture in it.
I can confirm, because I don't get a lot of fast food anymore, obviously since surgery. When I have gotten stuff, I would get like a kid's meal or a McDouble meal, and sometimes I'd get that stuff and I wouldn't eat the bun because the bread at fast food, especially McDonald's, is very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's empty calories I don't want. So I would just take the burger off, eat the burger, eat the
meat,
the meat, eat if I got the kids meal, I'd eat the apples and all that sort of stuff too. and then leave the bun in the wrapper and then throw it out later on, or throw it out to the birds. And you know what?
Yeah.
I found one that I thought I tossed out, and the bag must have fallen out and behind.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was doing a big cleanup, it had been at least 2 weeks, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be terrifying." And I opened it up, and inside of there, the bun was perfectly preserved. After 2 weeks, you leave hamburger buns out for 3 or 4 days, they get mold.
Oh yeah. When I used to have a car with any of my number of girlfriends, we'd have a lot of fast food in the car. And I remember sometimes French fries would fall under the seat. So sometimes, to surprise my girlfriends, I would go outside in the morning and I'd clean the cars sometimes, right? Be the nice boyfriend. And the amount of perfectly preserved French fries, sure, they're a little dry, but they almost looked good enough to eat still.
I'll tell you,
weird.
The ones that are the crispy skin on style ones,
yeah,
they're preserved. McDonald's ones are preserved. The old crinkle cut style, those ones will go bad.
Yes.
And you know what? Whatever ones go bad are the ones if you're gonna eat fast food, are the ones you probably should eat.
Like Wendy's,
not Wendy's now.
Yeah, not Wendy's now.
The old style Wendy's, or the old style, like the old ones where they had or homemade ones if you go to a diner. And again, we're not saying you should eat fast food. You shouldn't eat fast food. But if you're gonna, at least eat the ones that do go bad.
Like Five Guys probably wouldn't go bad.
Five Guys will go bad.
Really? Yeah.
It's fresh cut.
Yeah.
Those would go bad. So that's the ones you want, because
anything from a chain, you gotta be really careful.
Less chemicals, right? So if you're gonna go to a chain burger place, make it a chain burger place where you can watch them cut your fries right there and make it out of a potato.
Yeah. Like, I imagine fries that would stay fairly preserved. I think Wendy's would not, or they would stay preserved. Burger King for sure. I can confirm that. McDonald's, obviously.
Harvey's will go bad.
Oh, right, because they do fresh cut them in the bag.
They're fresh cut skin on ones, and they have them in freezer bags, but I think they get them. They're not the ones where they have the fake crispy skin stuff.
Yeah, like they do like a blanch to get the starch off, but that's about it. So yeah, that's weird. I seem to recall we covered a story like within the last couple of years where they had a burger and it has very, very little mold on it.
The burger had a tiny bit of mold, but the bun had nothing.
Yeah, and they kept it looked mummified.
Yeah,
but that's because all the moisture's gone.
And the pickle was fine because it's already pickled. It was in a brine, so it's so vinegary that when it dried out, it still had the vinegar properties that nothing would grow on.
Yeah, it's so strange to think about the things that we put in our bodies by choice and convenience.
Don't eat bread that doesn't go bad after a week and a half of being out.
Yeah, like it's questionable.
And I'm talking white bread.
Yeah,
there are certain crusty breads that'll last longer.
Mm-hmm.
If as long as moisture doesn't get to it, it might go stale. But like a French bread won't go bad if moisture doesn't get to it.
Yeah, like I remember eating French bread as a kid. Growing up poor for a little while, and you're right. As long as you keep it in a good air safe-ish container,
as long as it's not too humid, you're fine.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, long story short, don't eat strange things you find in the walls.
Also, I was going to ask you, how did all the fries in the bottom of the car taste?
It was so weird because it always happens.
No, wait. The reason I say this is that had happened to me, where a family trip, we had gotten McDonald's on the trip. We didn't buy a lot of McDonald's as a kid, and a couple of my fries, fell out of my container, rolled into the car seat in front of me. I'm like, oh, it's still good. Reach under, grab it, start chewing, and realize that I'm eating old French fries.
Oh.
And they weren't terrible, which was the terrifying part. They were just cold, which I'm like, oh,
cold and hard, right?
Yeah. The problem was the fries in my hands were hot, so those were not the same fries.
I seem to recall, I think I may have accidentally done something similar, but yeah, not a fun time. So
I had done that before, where you you're sitting in the car, not so much under the seat, and it falls beside you. So you're like, oh, it's falling into the seat cushion. You pick it up, and it's not the same fry.
Yep. So you could have a fart flavored fry.
A fart fry, yay! And especially, it's even better when both your parents are smokers.
Oh, gross. So we're gonna get off that delightful story, I'm sure. So we're gonna move on to our story that Alex found this week. This one comes courtesy of Salon.com. Pentagon-funded research proposed nuking the moon in an attempt to discover anti-gravity.
This is 100% a you story. That's why I
Oh
grabbed
yeah, 100%. But the fantastical sounding research may have been merely an attempt by a contractor to milk government coffers. A plethora of downright bizarre scientific research from the Department of Defense previously kept under wraps has been uncovered, revealing an array of peculiar schemes proposed by the U.S. military. One outlandish proposal detonating nuclear bombs on the moon to create a tunnel through it. Millions in taxpayer dollars were spent on research which appeared to have relied on a contractor, Bigelow Advanced Aerospace Research Studies, which is owned by multi-millionaire Robert Bigelow, a hotel impresario. Funnily enough, me and Alex were just talking about this off air. This Robert Bigelow is a pretty big guy in UFO circles. I was watching a documentary produced by Showtime. He's the guy who purchased Skinwalker Ranch, had a U.S. defense contract with the Advanced Aeronautical Project. I can't remember what it was. Basically the story that was broken by the New York Times back in 2017 for ATIP, which was the research into advanced aerial phenomenon that was basically the government's UFO research program. Anyway, side note. So the public was kept in the dark until now regarding what research had been funded. The documents pertaining to the research were obtained by a Vice reporter through a Freedom of Information Act filed 4 years ago. A writer with the Black Vault, which is a very good UFO researcher, a blog devoted to declassified government documents, received many of the same papers the same week based upon a separate Freedom of Information Act filed years ago. The moon nuking proposal and other bizarre research documents originated in the unclassified yet highly secretive Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, which I was just talking about, founded in 2007, a division within the Department of Defense. When the New York Times uncovered the program in 2017, ATIP became synonymous with UFOs, which were alleged object or advanced subject story of their investigations. Following the video leak of unidentified aircraft sightings from former director Luis Elizondo after his resignation from the DoD. By then, the program had already ceased to exist, but the question remains, why would an organization supposedly concerned with UFOs and future aerospace technologies contemplate detonating nuclear weapons on the moon? The confusing answer has to do with a specious science centered around anti-gravity and suggests that the government was hoodwinked by a contractor who wanted to justify their ongoing government contracts by producing facile research documents that, and on the surface, appealed to be feasible futuristic technological possibilities, yet which actually lack a rigorous understanding of fundamental physics. Almost 100 pages of reports, proposals, contracts, and meeting notes detail the feasibility of a wide range of technologies seemingly generated from science fiction. Many have author names redacted, but former Senator Harry Reid, who was not only privy to the ongoings of ATIP but founded it, had no such redactions. The late senator from Nevada, home of military installation Area 51, was famously interested in extraterrestrials. Ultimately, the results of ATIP will not only benefit the U.S. government, but I believe will benefit the DoD in ways not yet imagined, he wrote in a memo to the Secretary of Defense. The technological insight and capability gained will provide the U.S. with a distinct advantage over any foreign threats and allow the U.S. to maintain its preeminence as a world leader. The lunar tunnel concept, which was carved out using nuclear bombs, connected to the program's desire to achieve anti-gravity. There is no accepted scientific reason that a tunnel to the moon's core would provide access to anti-gravity or any kind of theoretical anti-gravity particle. The document proposing the moon tunnel, titled Negative Mass Propulsion, so literally Mass Effect, was dated to January 2011. It is an easy to prove that there are negative masses all around us, albeit hidden behind positive masses, it read. They're used for propulsion by reducing the inertia of matter, for example, in the limit of macroscopic bodies with zero rest mass. Oh my god, this really is Mass Effect. Depends on a technical solution to free them from their imprisonment by positive masses. Again, Mass Effect. The document proposes that large amounts of negative mass is a theoretical entity which there is no evidence, may become trapped or accumulate in gravitational potential wells like the center of the moon. The document continues, Now it just happens that the center of the moon is a potential well, not too deep that it cannot be reached by making a tunnel through the moon, not possible for the deeper well of the Earth where the temperature and pressure are too high. Making a tunnel through the moon, provided there is a good supply of negative mass, could revolutionize interstellar spaceflight. A sequence of thermonuclear shape charges would be required to make such a tunnel technically feasible. Gravity, one of the four fundamental forces of the universe, is a one-way attractor, unlike its counterparts in magnetism, which can also repel. The idea that there might exist anti-gravity, a negative force counteracting gravity, has been a staple of science fiction for generations. Yet the standard model for particle physics, a gold standard theory which predicted the properties of many fundamental particles long before they were cited, has no prediction of anti-gravity. The existence of anti-gravity would require negative mass, which has never been cited in the universe, nor any particle accelerator, which routinely produces exotic ambulances, which are going by at this hour.
Yes, exotic ambulances.
Exotic ambulances. A tip for sure. The moon tunnel proposal is premised upon using such an engineering project to access a hypothetical reserve of such negative mass. And then the article kind of goes on about this. So yeah, basically he's proposing Mass Effect. But this guy, this Robert Bigelow, and the fact that he got a defense contract with the US, the DoD generally, when it involves its aerospace programs, they generally don't hire morons.
No, they might hire an eccentric, but they only hire people they think
can produce results
and aren't going to compromise security.
Yeah, like he started an organization back in 1995 that was looking into exotic technologies. And part of one of his proposals, I think when they had ATIP, and I can't remember because I only saw this documentary last night, it was for the advancement and recovery of exotic technologies and materials. Now, to put that in another way, what's the most exotic material or technology you can think of?
Exotic material or technology?
Exotic.
As in not regularly used? Or
not regularly used or very uncommon to rare.
I guess now would it be the foldable screens? Like that, which is made out of, is it like a foldable silicon?
Something like that.
I think silicon itself is probably...
Yeah, so the idea behind this is obviously recovery of potentially exotic craft, be that spacecraft or whatever. And obviously UFO circles, I don't really need to go into my beliefs, it's very well known. But you look at it and you think about this, you look at specifically hypersonic technology for missiles, which are, some of these things are very hard to track and may not be able to be shot down because they're moving so quickly. So defense contractors are always looking for the next big hype machine they can build up, be it in detection technology, weapons technology, or stealth technology. And there is definitely stuff out there we don't know about because, you know, that's the secret nature of the military. That's just the way it is. So nuking the moon to look for literally Mass Effect fields, I don't think holds a lot of reason.
Let's nuke somebody else's moon first.
Well, the fact that we, like, the moon has a finite gravity. The moon exists at just the perfect distance from the Earth. Yes, it is moving away so many miles a year, and in like 5,000 or 6,000 years or something, its tidal effects will change on Earth. I'm probably getting some of the time.
Yeah, but if you blow it up, I seen the Time Machine movie from 2004 or whatever it was. You know what happens? Half of that fucking moon falls into the Earth and it covers us in nuclear dust.
You know what? Speaking of nuking the moon, my God. Okay, so this week...
Did you watch Moonfall?
I saw the last half hour.
Oh.
I'm going to tell you a story because I've never told you this. So Blair's watching it and I'm watching it out here with her, like the last half hour. She watched it in her room and whatever. So they get to the end of the movie. They're up in the spaceship and the guy pulls out a cell phone and the nano machine evil detects the signal and it comes at them. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? And then it's just cliche after cliche after cliche. And then they get into the middle of the moon and you find out it's actually an alien life support system or something. And I'm thinking, okay, this is weird. And then there's this huge chase sequence right at the end where there's the fat guy, there is the guy from The Conjuring, and Halle Berry. And the fat guy goes into the machine. He's about to sacrifice himself. And I said, what the fuck is going on? And this is just before Conjuring guy gets a vision. And he gets the vision. And he talks about the nanomachines and how they lived in a faraway galaxy, in a place, whatever. And I'm thinking, hey, wait a second. This seems really fucking familiar.
So
is this the Forerunners from Halo?
Mixed with the crazy Scientologist Xenu stuff?
Oh, no. Let me finish. So this goes on. The nanomachines attack because they decide organic life is too chaotic to be controlled. Hey, wait a second. I've heard this story before.
The Reapers?
Yes. And then I said, and you could not have, this was divine hand in creation moving. I said to Blair, she's sitting right where you're sitting right now. I'm like, if you tell me the fucking Reapers show up any minute, I'm gonna fucking scream. And just as I said, the words had just left my mouth. The Reaper horn. I'm like, no, stop, no. They just had the Halo and for it. They were literally on a Halo. The camera zooms out. They're on a fucking ring structure. I'm like, fuck you. Did anybody read this?
The Mass Effect 3 opening that everybody cried when they watched. And then the that leaving Earth scene.
Yeah.
When you see the kid blow up, you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is how this game's gonna be. And that, I think that's why people were upset at the end initially with the original ending.
Yeah.
And a little less so with the later on ones. But because the first game opens like a standard game from the time.
Mm-hmm.
The second game opens with one of the coolest intros ever, where you just basically die and get rebuilt, and that's the I'm like, that looks like a movie. The third one opens, and it opens better than most movies.
Yeah,
like you're like getting set up. We're gonna go win. This is our version of finish the fight. We're gonna win. And then the kid's like,
we're all gonna die.
No, the kid's like, you can't help me, and he runs away. And I mean, we're not gonna spoil whatever, but then looking up, sees the kid looks over, gets the confidence to run over and to get help and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking nuke. And then it's just like, and then the rest of the game is post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
Or what you think is post-traumatic stress, but really your dreams are being manipulated. But still, like the rest of the game until the very end is Shepard trying to hide the fact that was so traumatic for them.
Yeah, the fact that he couldn't save one life.
That was so traumatic that's like you've been on this big scale of battle the last two games, but it's the human factor. The child that didn't believe you could save them, that then trusted you and then died.
Yeah, like it's
so
warped.
So I see that, I'm like, and then I hear Moonfall, I'm like, that's stupid.
Yeah, like I was so upset. So like looking at
like what if they had the like the music,
I was so flabbergasted. Like I could, and then he's still alive. He meets his dead mom inside this. He's like, "Oh, I was always proud of you." And then he comes back and he lives forever. So he's become. So it's the control ending. He's now the Reapers. I'm thinking, oh my fucking god! Somebody played Mass Effect. Somebody played Halo. They scratched off the serial numbers and passed it off as their own.
It's Picard season 1 being Babylon 5's third space all over again.
Like what the fuck? So anyway, to finish out this science story, is anti-grav real? I'm certainly not a physicist. I can't tell you. But then again, we've also never observed dark matter. And we've never observed dark energy.
Isn't there also the cosmic fear of using a hadron collider, using this, creating literally
a black hole?
No, not just creating a black hole. What if you break the fabric of reality as we know it by introducing, like, you're making a miniature Big Bang, and you're basically...
Yeah.
Like, the particle collider is to try to simulate what a Big Bang does.
Mm-hmm.
So what if you end up creating an element that previous to this didn't exist in our universe? And then what happens? Does it become like an invasive species?
Well, there is a theory.
What if you create an element, like a building block of life? Let's say, you've got quarks and sparks and quarks. Was it quarks? And
yeah, there's quarks and strange matter is another thing.
Okay, so let's say that the smallest we can observe is like 3 or 4 elements if you introduce a brand new element, is it not going to be like carnivorous and maybe to change the way reality is? Like you're like, it's like there's no longer air in the world because this new particle, this new element of life has now altered the basics of how our universe operates.
There is a theory, not too dissimilar to yours, but it involves upon nanomachines. And nanomachines, son, there is a theory that when we create microscopic robots, there is a theory something could go wrong. And it's a theory known as gray goo. Gray goo breaks down your component cells in your body and other components around you. Everything from my bed to the chair to my bookshelf breaks it down to its component elements. So it literally becomes a self-replicating machine known as gray goo.
That's literally the replicators from Stargate.
Yeah, so
like
that's a legitimate threat.
They represented them as like Meccano because
it looks cooler.
Well, and because CGI at the time was easier to make spider creatures and stuff
that were geometric shapes
out of the exact same jigsaw shapes over and over and over again, because the computer, when you're rendering it, goes, this is made of 12,000 of these. We only have to render it once and then copy and paste it.
Yeah.
So that's why they did that, I guess, for visual. But that was essentially it. You didn't get far enough in, but at one point later on, when they visit replicators that have fully replicated humans, they visit a planet
and they find Carter, don't they?
Well, they go to this planet. They find out the planet doesn't exist. The planet is a replicator.
Well, that's cool.
And it's basically, you know, the what are the founders from Deep Space Nine?
Yeah,
they live on a goo planet.
Yeah,
is basically a goo, like it's goo that when they have visitors they make to look like a solid.
Wow, that's weird.
So
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, we blow it up real good. But let's just say they find a way to slow time for them so that they're super slow, and we blow the fuck out of them because the fear is that they would eventually replace all matter in the universe.
Yeah,
to create the one goo. So they were dealing with that concept like 12, 15 years ago in that show.
Yeah, like it's so strange. Like when you look at various end of the world scenarios, like I know gray goo has even been proposed by some academics. I don't know whether it's being taken seriously by various people in the scientific community, but when you look at the idea behind it, like if you can't control a microscopic robot at every second of its existence, it could be like a cancer. Something very much could happen. And if, again, to go back to the moon thing, if you change the moon's gravitational constant, you're taking mass away from an object that depends upon a very unique mass between the Earth, the moon, and the sun.
Could that not throw us out of the orbit that we currently take?
It wouldn't throw us out because we are more locked to the sun's gravity. But when you change the moon's gravity to ours, could it attract more because now we are exerting more energy over it, or would the sun's gravity pull it farther out?
So
we're changing a gravitational constant.
So basically,
as I understand it,
don't blow up the moon unless you're able to build a new one.
Yeah, or something like
which we don't have the ability to build a new one, so don't blow it up yet.
Yeah, please don't expect. Like, and there's even treaties proposed. There is a international weapons ban. You cannot taste weapons in space. Nuclear weapons are outlawed by the Nuclear Treaty of Outer Space, and I think it was signed in the 1970s, where all nations agreed to we won't do it.
No, that was after. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that after the Star Wars Russian thing failed and the collapse of the Soviet Union?
No, this was actually, I want to say it was in the 1970s. There was like the outer space treaties.
I know one of the biggest bluffs of the Cold War was America said they're going to put
like laser cannons
in space, and laser cannons and missiles in space. And they're like, and it's going to be able to pinpoint anybody in the world at any time. And it was a complete fallacy and lie. They said to the public they're going to do this, so that Russia's response was to actually try to make it, and it bankrupted their entire economy.
There was something, and it's going to be a really bad example because it's totally fiction, but I think the idea is somewhat sound. Have you ever seen, do you remember G.I. Joe Retaliation?
Yeah.
In G.I. Joe Retaliation, Cobra has these satellites surrounding the planet. They're filled with carbon rods. When these carbon rods accelerate to terminal velocity, You essentially have a missile with no explosive payload, but you have gravity.
It's essentially a railgun.
Yeah, it's essentially a railgun. So Star Wars weapons platform, all they would need to do is to get whatever space device to haul up, however material, position these things and drop them out of the sky. We have the technology to pinpoint an area. I'm not saying you're going to be able to take out a specific house, but you could target a block. You could target a square mile area.
For All Mankind, the TV, the alternate history TV show, like what if the Russians landed on the moon first and the Cold War never ended, and the space race in season 2, without spoiling anything dramatic with the plot. So don't worry about this.
Yeah.
One of the concerns is bringing M16s onto the moon.
Because the gravity has no effect.
So that they had to make weapons that would work on the moon. And then part of the discussion back and forth over multiple episodes is we can't do this. We can't make this precedent of bringing weapons to the moon. Not because of the treaty, because of what it would, that bringing weapons to the moon would essentially start World War III. And that's a big thing in that. And they're basically they're white M16, so you can see them in space because, against the blackness of space, it would be. And the idea was the concept of how they fire has to be at a much higher pressure.
Yes.
Equivalent to trying to make a weapon work underwater.
Yeah, because because in space there's no oxygen, you can't ignite gunpowder. So it would have to be some kind of a mass accelerator.
It's a propulsion, or basically working similar to
springs. You can do it with springs.
Yeah, because the chemical reaction would work. The idea is that it's exploding pockets of air to push it forward.
Yeah,
like a torpedo.
Yeah.
So very good show, worth watching. I suggest you watch it because season 3 is taking place in the 90s, and they're going to Mars.
Ooh.
But yes, worth watching. 10 episodes a piece on Apple. Probably the best show Apple has. That's my last promo for it. Just that it's the same concepts you're talking about. Is they even in that alternate history, their biggest fear of war with Russia was not a war on Earth. It was, will it be started by bringing weapons into space?
One last thing we'll talk about this story. I remember hearing this from several sources that during the space exploration missions of the 1960s and 70s, it was not unusual for the capsules that came back to Earth to have weapons on board. Because what if your capsule landed in enemy territory?
Yeah, the caps would have it, but the idea was you're not allowed to have it
out on the surface.
Yeah, like out on the surface or in the base. Like it had to be only on the return vehicles.
Because can you imagine having your suit perforated when you're out in vacuum? My God, that would be a terrible way to die.
Or like you're crashing and you're like, oh my God, we're going to burn up. There's no way to course correct. You're going to die, or you're going to land on land and not in the water.
Yeah.
You might want to take that shot.
Yeah.
And even then, I would imagine it's not loaded with more than one piece of ammunition.
Like I think for the moon capsules or whatever they were, I think they were issued shotguns.
One per person
or something. I don't know. Again, I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Not 100% sure.
But I mean,
it would track.
If you're going to crash and die, it's one thing. You're going to crash and die. But if the fear is you're going to land in foreign waters, you don't want to be taken.
Yeah, exactly. Especially during that time.
But it depends. The idea would be if you do land there, what you would hope, because it's international news, would be you're likely to be returned.
Yeah.
Even on both, because nobody wants the war to accelerate. They want to win and show that the Cold War was not about killing each other.
It was a technological dick
It was ideological. Our way of producing government and society is the best, and here's why. That's what it was. It wasn't they didn't go, I want to kill every American, I want to kill every Russian. It was, we want them to either side, we want them to join in our way of thinking to show that we are the superiors at thinking this. And that's the only reason the Cold War lasted as long as it did. It's because it was an ideological war. And by ideological, I don't mean like we're going to kill each other over our belief system as far as religion. It was, our way of government is better, and here's why. Look how superior we are. So it would look better if you return somebody, but still, there is always that fear. What if you land in the heartland and you're somebody who knows things that are too much?
Yeah. So moving on to our last story this week. This one, once again, gathered by Alex. Much appreciated. This one comes courtesy of UPI.com. Texas researchers find dozens of creepy dolls on Gulf Texas beaches.
There you go. You're welcome.
Researchers who come across a 40-mile stretch of Texas beach twice a week have been using social media to document some eerie discoveries. Dozens of creepy dolls. Jace Turnell, director of Mission Arsas Reserve at the University of Texas Marine Sciences Institute, said his team surveys about 40 miles of Gulf Coast beach at the reserves twice a week, and they have been frequently finding dolls of various types that were given a creepy aesthetic by the time in the water. We're actually doing scientific work, but the dolls are a perk, Tunnel told McClatchy News. Tunnel said the follower count on the Mission Arsas Reserve Facebook page has skyrocketed since he started sharing photos of the disturbing dolls. He said about 30 dolls have been found since he started posting the photos. The creepiest ones have all lost their hair, he said. The first one we found was a sex doll, the head of it. I posted a picture of it. I didn't realize what it was. We got a lot of followers on the page after that. Turnell said the first doll had found in January 2021 was purchased by a member of the public for $35, and the money was donated to a sea turtle rescue program. He said the dolls are now being kept in a bucket to be sold at the reserve's annual fundraising option. There's a lot of nightmares out there, Tunnell said. A 2-year study conducted at the University of Texas Marine Sciences Institute found beaches along Texas coastal bend received 10 times the amount of washed up trash as Gulf of Mexico because beaches in Florida and Mississippi. Turnell said the culprit is a loop current stretching from the Yucatan Peninsula in Florida, and he said the current creates eddies that washes debris along the Texas coast. This is somebody playing a prank. This is nothing supernatural. It's weird and fucked up.
I saw the title and I thought it was funny.
Yeah, and there's another creepy doll place. It's in South America. I want to say it could even be in Mexico. And
is that the one because the tanker crashed or something and a whole bunch of dolls that were going to be delivered showed up?
No, this is a separate one. It's like it's in a swamp somewhere, and it's some local legend tied into a little girl who passed away. And I think the place is just called Doll Island. I think you can Google it. It was covered on Ghost Adventures a couple years ago, but I've seen other paranormal teams go through there. And there's, I will say, some questionable things that have been found. I'm not going to say it's, Annabelle's coming to kill you.
Island of Dead Dolls in Mexico.
Yeah, like that's weird. And I've heard some interesting audio, but then again, I'm not the audio technician on site, so I can't tell you whether it was real or not. But it's interesting to say the least. These dolls, the fact that it's a sex doll, that automatically throws out any credibility, unless, Spooky Anna exactly has a sexual urge, which, okay, sure, it's 2022, why not? Yeah, that's pretty freaking weird. I like the fact that you can buy these severed heads at an auction that'll benefit this research. That's cool. I'm all for that. So that's pretty much going to do it.
It's when I saw the title saying dolls keep showing up.
Which, you know what? I bet you could, if someone really wanted to track these down, you could find them. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the Weird News This Week. Once again, we're going to reach into the grab bag of I don't know what it is, and we're going to throw something up from Alex here in his review bag o' goodies. And when we come back, we're going to finish out the show and tell you what's coming up next week here on the show as we return to our regular programming schedule. So we will be back right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. I've been Mike the Birdman. He's Alex the producer. We'll be back, guys, right after this.
This isn't funny, Amber.
Would you like to play a game, Tara?
Doors unlocked. All doors locked. Doors unlocked.
Greetings, citizens of Woodboro. It is I, Mike the Birdman, or am I Ghostface? You don't know until the very end. Well, I'll more than likely die. That's okay. That's right, guys. We are talking about the latest addition to the Scream franchise, which is also called, well, Scream, after the 1996 movie. So yes, this is the newest installment in this franchise, coming to us from Paramount Home Entertainment. We are taking a look at this on 4K with a digital code also included. So the thing about the Scream movies is you don't want to spoil the surprise. These things are wonderful horror movies, but they're also great mysteries and misdirects, because you're always asking, well, who's Ghostface? Who are they working with? Because, at least I'm pretty sure anyway, there's always two killers in every single movie. And this movie, because it takes place in the modern era, like, the last time we saw a Scream movie back in 2011, it was very much focused on the live streaming, and it was a product of its time, which each Scream movie usually is in some capacity. So this one has advances in technology. People are using cell phones and smart homes and stuff like that, and it does play into the plot. But the big surprise about this one is it's sort of passing the torch on to a new generation of Woodsboro residents, but you're still getting Gail, you're still getting Dewey, and of course you're getting Sydney back in some capacity. And this is a really, really good entry into the franchise. I had a fantastic time with this movie, and I'm really glad to see the Scream franchise continuing forward. Now, what is that going to mean for the future of this franchise? I don't know. Because after this movie, I think we're going to get into a Spaceballs sort of scenario. Allow me to explain what I mean. Dark Helmet says to Lone Star at one point, "I'm your father's brother's roommate's former cousin's golf caddy." Or just, you're so far down the line of succession, it makes designated survivors seem completely plausible by that kind of standard. But here, you know what? I'm willing to go with it. You sign me up. So if the script is smart, the director's smart, you're going to get a fantastic movie. And here, you are not going to be disappointed. Now, let's talk about the disc and some of the special features that you're going to be getting here. You are getting a feature-length filmmaker commentary. As always, great stuff like that if you're a really big kind of cinephile. There are 3 deleted scenes, and I question as to why they didn't just leave them in the movie, but because they're so short, and they just add a little bit of character and a little bit of fleshing out into scenes. But I could see maybe, since I'm not a film editor, not accredited anyway, why they want to keep up certain pacing, or maybe they don't want to slow things down, or maybe they don't want to reveal too much about a certain character for whatever reason. That's fine. There's also a scene where they talk about meeting the new cast, sort of the legacy that they've held for so long, which is a lot to live up to. I mean, you've got Nev Campbell, you've got David Arquette, Courtney Cox, but also people like Jamie Kennedy. And they actually kind of reference during this, they're like, every character has things that are referenced. They actually do a featurette where they visit the kitchen from the first Scream movie. Each of the tiles was hand painted to match the first Scream movie, which came out all the way back in 1996. So the one of the people, I think it may have even been the director, he's like, well, this is pretty spot on, and we did as much as we possibly could. Certain characters' costumes are the same. In fact, one of the I think one of the boyfriend characters is wearing the Letterman's jacket that Drew Barrymore's boyfriend was wearing when he was strapped to the chair, and well, you know what happened to him. So I thought that was really nice and appreciated too. And even the first attack in the movie, she looks like Drew Barrymore, and it works out rather well. And then you get a little bit of kind of a tribute piece to Wes Craven. As always, we do miss Wes. He was a wonderful filmmaker, and obviously gave us characters like Ghostface, Freddy Krueger, Last House on the Left, which, boy, that movie is messed up. But it's a nice little tribute piece to him. And then finally, and oddly enough, you get a trailer for the original Scream movie. It's out in 4K now. Cool. I really don't know much more what I would have wanted from this. It would have been neat to have maybe like that pop-up video sort of visual track, or maybe they could have had like little factoids or something. But overall, though, I'm very pleased with this movie. If you want to see a new version of the Scream franchise, you really can't go wrong with this newest version. This is rated certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. 9 times out of 10, you can trust those guys. But as a guy who has loved the horror movie franchises that have been created by Wes, and as a big fan of the Scream franchise, in fact, after this movie came out, I actually went out and bought my wife a replica of the 25th anniversary of Stab on Blu-ray. It actually comes with like a fake ticket for Gail Weathers' book. It comes with a preview screening pass to see Stab 2. all these really cool in-universe items, so Etsy sellers can do some really, really, really cool stuff. And, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing more from the Scream franchise. So Scream from Paramount Home Entertainment definitely gets a massive recommendation from us here at ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Hello?
It's happening. 3 attacks so far. Do you have a gun?
I'm Sydney Prescott. Of course I have a gun.
Something about this one just feels different.
All right, guys. Well, that is the kind of show it has been here only on ThisWeekInGeek.net. Coming up on the site, I know me and Alex have recorded with Aaron. We've recorded 2 loose cannons. Is the first one out yet?
No, I've been collecting things. We'll be editing. I wanted to bank a bunch of stuff so that over the course of May, we're just going to start getting alternating weeks where we're going to have
Earth versus Soup.
Earth versus Soup is every week.
Okay.
We're going to have the 2 Future Imperfects we've already recorded.
Okay.
So we're going to have Future Imperfect. Then the next week it'll be a loose cannon, then back and forth. So we've got those. I've also got I think 3 or 4 more of Stargates to put out on Saturdays starting next week as well.
Yep.
I've got a couple of reviews recorded for a Turd or Treasure that are a little too long to put in our regular show. So I've got that part done. I don't know if there's any more. I don't think there's been any Nerd to the Third Power. I think there might be one more coming soon.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I haven't talked with Gonzo about that in a while.
Because last thing we posted was the finale of Fools Who Ride.
Yeah, so as far as I know, he did something with Kat, but I don't know when that's been edited or if it has been. He also just moved.
Yeah,
so.
He's in the process of moving. When something comes out, we'll post it. And as far as anything else goes, I know that JT wants to record some Sunday funnies. It's just about finding the time and when it's going to work for me and him, or you and him and everybody.
Or Ken. I think he said he was going to do something with Ken.
Maybe they'll do something. We'll get something going. It's just you can't have something recording every day of the week. We need breaks too.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's like so busy. So like,
we're gonna have stuff banked. But that was my idea. Is we're gonna have a few episodes of each show banked, ready to go.
Yeah, and the idea is, me and Alex talked about this with Aaron. We're going to try, as we mentioned, just banking. We're going to try and make sure we always have stuff coming out during the month of July. So maybe we'll try record a commentary or 2 as well. We're going to record a bunch of loose cannons and some really simple things
the goal is like loose cannon once a week to record at least, maybe twice, maybe. And then the Future Imperfect, we've had success so far by doing an episode back to back.
Yeah.
Like where we have a specific topic, one that's easy for us to research and talk about, like our playthroughs of the different seasons of TNG. And then we'll have a topic show that we can talk about. So, and we're going to try to keep them in around the 45-minute mark for each.
Yeah, exactly. So basically you always have something to throw on in the background. As for what's coming up, Alex did mention Stargate. The idea is right now, season 1 of Stargate is coming to an end. We have 3 more episodes left before the epic season 1 ending. And then we're going to take a few breaks while Alex reads the rule
And when we
book.
say that, that's 3 more episodes to record in addition to what we have banked.
Yes. So there will be a grand total of 7 more episodes coming.
So the reason my goal here is because we've had a few gaps where we had to miss a few weeks because of timing, is once we have everything wrapped, the idea is you won't miss a Saturday. Every Saturday until it's done, we'll have something.
Yeah.
So that we won't have a break. That's why we banked a few already ahead of time here.
Yeah. So Alex is working on the Renegade Game Studios Power Ranger system. He's going to be running the adventure that comes with the Game Master screen, which I do have, but I have not read. I have the Game Master screen, so I won't read the adventure. I've read the system. And it'll be 3 Ranger team. And I guess if Alex wants to give us 2 NPCs, he can do that. And then, we're going to do that. We have reached out to play stuff like G.I. Joe. We're talking about Transformers. The Terminator game is going off to the printers really soon. I should be getting that for the PDF. soon.
And we looked at a few that we were interested in maybe contacting companies over. One of them we're not going to anymore, and that was the Dark Souls game.
Yeah, no, it
got horrifyingly crucified by having spelling errors, and not just spelling errors,
mechanical errors,
significant logic holes and contradictions.
Yeah,
where it was clearly not thought out properly.
Yeah, so
and they're hand waving it off.
Yeah, like, you know, if any game deserves its own RPG, considering how interesting the world is, I know it's a little early, and I know the game just came out. Elden Ring,
which is part of it's the same idea, same concept, but here's when we say that it's complicated and there's problems with it, and they compromise their own integrity with it. There's multiple starter characters that you can't play in the book because it tells you to roll for them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you read the math, it's impossible to use the starting equipment with that class. It's like, here's the character class, here's the equipment they start with that you can pick from, and you can't pick any of them because you could never possibly roll high enough to use any of them.
That's stupid.
Like, it's basic math that isn't working with it. So, and their response to that was, "Oh, just make it work yourself." But then they still want like $90 for the book.
Yeah, no, I'm
totally
good.
So we just went, you're toxic. We're not going to deal with that.
Yeah. Other things we've also been kind of looking at. I've reached out for the My Little Pony game. I just want to review that. I doubt that's something we're going to play.
I can see you buying it if you don't get it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that makes me happy. I do want to run Star Trek Adventures. I am watching Enterprise right now, and I'm really enjoying that. So that'll be kind of fun. The One Ring, which is the new Lord of the Rings game, is kind of fun. And this is new breaking news for me. My friend's or my sister's boyfriend, Sam, has talked to me about wanting to run D&D. I get to be a player because every other time I've tried to do this here in Guelph, it's just fallen through and punched me in the face. So this one actually seems fairly hopeful. I have to recruit a band of adventurers or teenagers with attitude, whatever you want to do. So that should be fun. He's going to be putting that together hopefully soon. And hopefully Birdman will have something to talk about. Speaking of role-playing games, before we exit out of this, I am going to be talking with one of the developers for the Doctor Who game, the one published by Cubicle 7. I'm doing that interview next Friday. We're going to be talking about the old role-playing game, which is getting a new second edition coming out this summer in Q2, I want to say. The PDF is, I want to say, available right now. Thanks, asshole. I love motorcycles, don't you?
Where you live seems to have all of the bikers.
Yeah, it's so annoying. And then we're also going to talk about the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition of Doctor Who, which I think is called Doctors and Daleks. So, okay, cool. I don't see how that's going to work, but I'm going to find out. So that'll be fun. So yeah, that'll be coming out sometime next week, and it'll be Botched Roll. I may try recording a few of those over the summer. I always say I'm going to do it, but now that I've been playing more, or I've been GMing more consistently and doing a private Shadowrun game with some people, I'm really starting to get back into that headspace.
And we only have like one or maybe not even any official prototype episodes this year yet.
Well, it's such a weird year because like I'm going back and playing back catalog games. I'm having more fun playing back catalog than anything recent.
Like, I mean, the Halo one technically was, but that was more of a Twig special.
Yeah, and Alex is working on proposing his special, which will be our summer special.
And I'm thinking it's going to be probably a game franchise, but the problem has been I want to make something that's topical, that is relevant now, plus also history based.
Mm-hmm.
And without knowing what the summer holds for a lot of game releases or what's coming out, I want to see what the news is coming out as we enter E3 period.
Yeah.
And not too late. Like it might be something that, I don't want to wait so that we only have 2 weeks to prepare.
Yeah.
But like, if I don't hear any rumblings of anything in particular that piques my interest in the next 3 weeks,
yeah,
I'm going to just pick something else completely and just go with it.
Yeah, just pick something that you want to talk about, something that you want to introduce me to.
Well, the goal was initially thinking like maybe we could start, like we did for yours, get an interview or two with somebody on the creative team. But if there's nothing that we see that's pertinent, it's a little easier to get somebody when there's a new property coming out.
Mm-hmm.
But if there isn't, then we just make it segments without that.
Yeah, so either way, you will have something. I know we've talked with James Rolfe the Angry Video Game Nerd. We are doing our annual Halloween special. We're going to be recording that sometime during the summer. So I have the summer to edit it and put it together and make it all cool.
The one show where we have like a 3-month lead time.
Yeah, it's really nice because James always gives us this time. So I'll touch base with him. We're going to be talking about, I think, Stephen King movies this year, ones that you maybe haven't seen necessarily, or ones that don't get a lot of attention. So we will be talking about that later on during the Halloween season. And then we'll have a Halloween themed prototype. I think we're doing, or not prototype, Loose Cannon will probably be doing John Carpenter movies this year. So look forward to that. So other than that, that's pretty much going to do it for us here at ThisWeekInGeek.net. Thank you for joining us. One of the things I'm going to be including in the show notes is I'm going to be including the GoFundMe for Dominic, the little boy who was hurt, who's looking for superheroes. If you can help this kid, if you have the time to donate, please consider. Also, standing strong with Ukraine, as we always do. If you can help support through any means necessary, it does mean a lot. And I guess just go forward, have yourselves a good week. When I come back next week, I will have significant big news when I have my name, hopefully. So I'm still probably going to be going by Birdman, but I'm not going to commit to that right now. So we'll see. I don't know. Is it good medicine and bad medicine? Well, no. So anyway, for ThisWeekInGeek.net, we have been
Alex, the producer.
And I have been Mike, the Birdman, potentially for one of the last times as Birdman, saying, and until next time, folks, be excellent to each other. Have yourselves a fantastic week. We'll catch you guys again next time, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.